have
the
been
conversation.
the funniest thing I've heard in 6 days.
Yeah.
No one in Ariel's accent and voice specifically. No one fucks with Delilah.
That should be a T-shirt.
I agree. No one fucks with Delilah, I guess.
Listen, we've been running on steam, most of us. So, like, we'll get serious. But that was very funny. What was the argument, boxing? You're trying to make?
Yeah, I
Is it
mean,
a bad media campaign?
no. It
Or
wasn't. No, I was obviously just stating the fact that there is obviously a media campaign on the pro Hamas side in general. But what I'm saying is that it seems that again that the most efficient way to discredit Israel and things of that nature with disinformation is when people that are on the side of Israel make mistakes and then they're amplified to discredit anything. Like that's kind of what they're using because again, there's such a distrust in media and government that people that are maybe not like so hateful are like, man, like they start questioning things that are truths, but when mistakes are made, it's amplified. So
okay, so let's talk the questioning. How did it possibly happen? Is this one of the things that is coming up in the spaces? Let's go through the 3 or 4 narratives. One, that you have this small cult of a group which doesn't believe in Israel's right to exist until Messiah comes, right? This obscure cult that gets paid literally by the IRGC and flown out to do these weird things. Like for us, they're like a Jones Day cult. Any day now, we're waiting for them to, drink some magic potion and they're going to all fall asleep because who knows what they think of from any given day. There's always going to be people that have like some type of psychosis. There's such a small percentage. I don't even know if they have a total of like 200 people.
Things I know. Like,
I know
okay.
these things.
Yeah.
Second narrative is, there must have been some type of psyop involvement that we did this intentionally and we're willing to sacrifice the lives of our people in order to get the whole world to rise up and blah, 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 blah. No, like we've gone through as far as we know so far, we've gone through the 5 different like state agents that we've seen somewhat involvement. And I think like even Intel Schizo was on here. We've kind of like reviewed all different machinations of it. And if less than 5 people really knew that they were going to do this, and if possible, if somebody actually in the government who we've put into the government, because we allow them to be in the government, right, at a higher level, had some intel, or if it was a breach from the U.S., I just heard that Kerry got fired today because of his involvement in Iran. So now it's Robert Malley, Kerry, and the 3 spies. What?
John Kerry?
Yeah, John Kerry.
He got fired today?
He's bye-bye.
Can you put them in nest?
I like literally somebody told me over the phone. So I was like, okay, I need confirmation. I know that's like a little early intel, but apparently those meetings happened today. And I don't know if that's why Biden had the State Department meetings is because they had these, Al-Qaeda meetings today is what we were told. Sorry, it's loud here. Let me go on mute for a second.
Stealth, fired from what though? Because John Kerry is not a part of the administration.
I think isn't Kerry the global warming something or other?
He actually has a pretty big position, and it's this unusual position. Remember, he had to come to Congress to testify about his position and all the people that work underneath him, who were all intelligence agents.
Yeah, but I think he's the. I mean, he might have another position, but I think he's the global warming something or other representative.
I think he got kicked out of his wife's trust fund. I think he got.
Yeah. Can you look up to his congressional meeting where they're questioning him about who works for him, and every single name that was brought up was CIA, and his trips to Iran and his trips all over were basically national security trips. He refuses to give the names of the people that work underneath him in that special department. So that's unusual. That's why they brought him.
This has been going on for years, multiple administrations, okay? They're finally doing something about it? Is that what you're telling us?
Apparently, yes. This stuff with Iran got way too hot.
Okay.
So let me pull that up. You guys talk amongst yourselves. Let me pull up that hearing.
Yeah.
So, but boxing on the question that you asked. I mean, yeah, of course. As much the funny thing is, and there is some, like there's some truth to everything. There's some truth even to the stupidest things in the world. Like when I say some, I mean like 0.1. But on the overall aggregate level, as much as Israel gets accused of having like a good propaganda, the Palestinians, because they're the Palestinian movement, because it's allied with the progressive movement widely, the sort of intersectional coalition of fucking of just crazy nonsense, right?
No cussing on the space. No cussing tonight.
Yeah, fine. I just cussing makes a nice excuse me, because they're aligned with the progressive movement. And if you ever,
and AB, stop smoking too.
I'm not smoking right now. Actually, I'm just coughing a little bit.
Okay.
And if you ever go to any lefty protest, it could be back in the day, anti-Iraq war. It could be global warming. It could be Black Lives Matter. It could be Black Trans Lives Matter. It could be LGBT. You will always see a Palestinian flag. They've expertly, right? Because their whole that whole ideology is about victims and victimizers with no nuance, and automatically.
Yep, exactly.
So because of that, they have the long story short. Because of that, they actually have, and it's amplified by the media, because most of the media is left of center at best, left of center at worst, far left. So their propaganda is basically much better. So you are right on your general point that we have to try to strive to be as accurate as possible. And it is what it is, and we are. I know on this space we made we didn't make a mistake. The Israeli military made a mistake. We put it on the thing. We changed it right away. But like the truth is clear. As I said, we always got to go back to the source truth, which is that the mass rapes, murders, beheadings of mostly civilians was broadcast, amplified, bragged about, and publicized by their own media. They're now,
right.
of course, denying it because they're getting they realize that other people are not, even other jihadists are like, yo, guy, you went a little overboard there, So it is what it is. Anything else they say is bullshit. Their overall narrative is bullshit, and they're all gonna die. I'm talking about the terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, it's also maybe it's literally an environment.
Hold on, boxing. Angela has an update. Hold on. Go ahead, Angela.
I have an update, and it's kind of interesting. I wish we had military people in here. It says a Gulfstream C-37B called RCH-174 with the U.S. Air Force is currently preparing to land at Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, Israel. This aircraft is used for the secure transport of senior military officials and occasionally White House cabinet members. This is opinion. So my guess is it's likely carrying Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who was set to arrive in Israel sometime today, and then it's a picture of the actual plane.
Yes, but let's, our region is, we need to be cautious right now.
Would you like me to delete it?
Yes. With the Hezbollah, you never know.
I'm going to say one thing, and then you could drop me the listener, because I do have to go. But again, it's just, listen, you guys are preaching to the choir. Like, it is nice to explain these things, but again, it's just, I'm just aware we live in an environment where even people that are somewhat good-hearted, they, since COVID, since the media, everything, people like literally are begging to see things happen in 4K to believe it, and it's a really fucked up, messed up time. Sorry to curse. In which, since Hamas is taking such an advantage of it, and unfortunately they're being somewhat efficient. Obviously not efficient enough, but again, as if we're supporting, Israel, this is also part of it in a way. So I don't know. It's just that's all I have to say. It's just a sentiment that I've just kind of been seeing on Twitter, and I just appreciate you guys.
No, you're right. You're right. The overall, listen, we have a very sick culture overall, including on the right. By the way, we have a sick culture on the right. Not obviously, I would say not nearly as sick as what's on the left, which has infused the right as well. But the sort of the reactionary element to that. So we have a sick culture in this country, and we have sick institutions in this country, which is perpetuated a sick culture. Obviously, it's like a much bigger story, but it all plays into the result that we see thousands of our fellow citizens being objectively for mass rape, murder, torture, and abduction.
Listen,
and we have to deal with that. It's a very bad reality, and our elite institutions producing law students who publicize letters endorsing that shit.
AB,
and that's a problem, and we have to destroy that. Change
Can
that.
you hear me, AB?
AB, can you hear the person who's talking? Can you hear the person who's talking, AB?
Hello.
AB? Boxing was talking. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
No. Can you hear Reliable?
Hello, can you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear Reliable.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'll drop down, and actually drop me down and call me back up.
Wow.
Or drop Reliable down and call him back up. Either way.
Whichever. It's up to Stealth. Okay.
By the way, another narrative that
Ariel,
I would just like. Okay.
Utsav, you have your hand up. I see you have the wrong flag in your bio. What's going on?
Well, I understand. Well, first of all, I just want to be very clear. I am pro-Israel, and I am a MAGA guy. And
Is someone
yes,
talking?
I'm talking.
Yes, there's someone talking. Can you not hear him?
Hello, testing.
I can't. I'll drop and come back. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes, I have the Palestinian flag, but that doesn't make me a Palestinian supporter. I just care about civilians. But I'm not. I'm not here to defend Hamas. I don't. You know, you don't know me, and I'm not here to cause any crisis or stir.
It's okay, Utsa. You don't have to be. Don't worry about it. He was
Okay.
just calling you out. It can be lighthearted about it.
I have a
We're not.
dove, and I
Yeah.
believe in I believe we're children of God, and I don't want any more people to die. That's where I'm coming from. Anyway,
No worries. Go for
so
it.
I have been I live in DC, and I work for like a number of nonprofits, and I do a lot of advocacy work. One of the things I've been doing is bringing up to lawmakers the issue of Qatar. I know it's been covered probably extensively in this space, but the mainstream media is letting Qatar off the hook. And if you permit me to speak for a little bit, I would just like to share some details. So, the largest.
I'm sorry, is the
Hi.
BBC's what? Could you repeat that?
Repeat what, ma'am?
I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
I think he was talking about Qatar.
Qatar? The
Okay,
country?
Qatar. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, what about it? I didn't hear what you said.
Sure. So basically, the nation of Qatar is one of
No,
the.
what did you say? You
I'm
said
trying.
a sentence.
I'm
No,
trying
you're going to
to.
explain it, but what is the sentence you said? Okay, just
I'm,
never mind.
He's going to explain their involvement in what's going on right now, which I concur with him. I just want to see if he has any new data points for us. That's where I think he's going.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, as you guys probably know or may not know, the largest single recipient to Hamas that provides money and is a country is the nation of Qatar. It's actually not spoken about at all. It's not highlighted. The second point is that Hamas's leadership and operations—that's the key thing. Operations is actually based out of Qatar. And it has been speculated by analysts that I work with. Essentially, they directed a lot of this attack from the hotels of Qatar. It's actually quite frightening. The country has been obviously pushing that pro-Hamas narrative through Al Jazeera, which, as you all know, Al Jazeera has played defense for a whole plethora of various terrorist organizations. For whatever reason, Osama bin Laden would always be on Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera would just magically get the first scoop of bin Laden. Furthermore, the Qataris have been the greatest apologists for Hamas. And when we read the news and hear that Qatar is willing to negotiate negotiate with the West or negotiate with Israel about these hostages, what ends up happening, what we don't really appreciate or realize, that Qatar isn't like working as an independent mediary between Hamas and Israel. In fact, they're not in any way a mediary. They're just literally sheltering Hamas and working with them and palling around with them. They're not a true independent actor. They're in fact an agent, essentially, of Hamas. And whenever I've talked...
Sorry to interrupt, but does anyone actually think Qatar is acting as a benevolent intermediary? I mean, does anyone actually think that? Sincerely think that?
No, but some American liberals and stupid conservatives believe that. Yes, they shouldn't believe it. It's dumb, but they do. And Qatar's one of the respected a lot more because they do a lot of legalized bribery, the Constitution and others. They're much more well respected than they should be. U.S. maintains one of the largest air bases there. Go ahead.
You're just adding to the points. Qatar has one of the most I would say wealthiest lobbyist firms in the United States. And the level of access they have to members of Congress is unprecedented. Like, you'll hear anti-Semites go off about how there's an Israel lobby. But what people don't realize is actually the Qataris are very much rooted in DC. And they have this unprecedented access that is just unbelievable. The other point I was going to make, and I think this is like the concluding point I was trying to make, which is I think the reason why Qatar doesn't come up in the coverage of the Western news is because Qatar, unfortunately, does provide certain benefits to U.S. interests. So there's that U.S. airbase in Qatar, which is an issue. Second thing is Qatar has worked on the behest of the United States in speaking to various bad faith actors, like Iran, for example. Qatar was a major player in the facilitation of that nuclear civilian deal between Iran and the United States. Qatar also provides a kind of like they're part of that collective security network for Saudi Arabia.
I think also the Taliban thing, the
Yes.
release. Remember the
Yes.
Taliban hostage swap, whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. So, that's another great point. The Qataris played host to, the Americans for this Doha agreement, and it's quite something. And actually, everyone talks about how Qatar, benevolent Qatar, they're helping America out with this whole Afghanistan issue. Qatar was actually one of the first countries to recognize the Taliban leadership of Afghanistan, and this was before 9/11. And they were one of the first countries also to recognize the Taliban when they took power a second time. And there's, the thing is, what concerns me as a fellow American is the fact that this country, Qatar, doesn't get enough attention because they do so much for the West, and I don't think it benefits this corporate media complex if they were to speak ill of Qatar. Another thing is that Qatar has a lot of investments in the United States. They really throw their cash big time. So I'm praying to God that sensible people in our country, the elites, will do the right thing and stop looking so hard at the dollars and cents that they're earning and accruing, and do the just thing, expel Hamas, pressure Qatar to expel the leaders of Hamas, bring some accountability to what Qatar has done, and essentially try to cripple Hamas as much as possible. We're never going to fix this problem so long as we have.
Utsav, would you be willing to do a thread on Qatar, or if you're not comfortable posting it, would you do a thread and send it to me?
Yeah, sure.
Because I've been talking about them for quite some time, especially in relation to this.
Utsav, let me ask: Are you? Oh, sorry. Continue yourself. If you had more.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess
Well,
one more thing.
hold on, Stealth.
Okay.
I want to say something here because
Sure.
I think this is kind of important to say. I've been doing business with people from Qatar for a while, and I think okay. So Qatar is one of the top, one of the largest property owners in New York. I don't know if people know that. Okay, so
yep, I know that as well. Yep.
Yeah, so oftentimes what happens is I'm bidding for something, and then you get people from Qatar ready to bid 10, 20 times what something is worth.
And China.
And yeah, but I'm talking about Qatar right now. So, but my point is, I really don't know any of my American counterparts who actually think Qatar is some benevolent place. So I'm not sure. I think it's great that to write a thread or something about it. I think that's a great idea, but I can tell you right now, all my business counterparts, none of us like Qatar. We all see Qatar as like this snake, basically, that comes in and tries to outbid us. And we're like the Americans in our, at these auctions, like we're just kind of like sometimes we know we have to, bid too high, and we do it. And sometimes we don't want the Qataris to get something because it's a great piece of land, and that's just how it is. And but I really don't think the sentiment is that people think Qatar is some great place. I think you're right. It has a lot of money here and influence because of the money, but I don't think that people think it's some great benevolent force.
Actually, the reason why people do think this way is because they're uninformed.
I'm telling
And okay,
Ustav,
hi, it's
uh,
Utsav.
Ustav, I'm
Yes.
telling you they don't.
Okay, that's your opinion, ma'am, but I actually speak to people on the street all the time about
Okay.
this issue. I've been doing nothing
Yeah,
but...
so I think Sphinx, one second, Utsav, let me clarify this. So Sphinx, because of the kind of business you do and the fact that you're very international and you're mixing with people from different nationalities, they're probably going to be more aware of that topic. I'm more aware of it for a different reason. But the common man, when we're looking at, okay, what's happening geopolitically, it is the one name that very seldom comes up unless you're talking in certain circles. And I think that when I first said on Friday, I had a list of people that I felt was involved with this. Okay, it was more than just, oh, they're housing the leadership over there. There was more coordination, even that. And the interesting thing is are they going to be coordinating on our behalf to get the U.S. citizens out as hostages for the U.S. and what kind of pressure is the U.S. willing to put on them to make that happen? So I think there's a bridge between what you and Yutsef is saying. You may be savvy about it, but what he's saying is there's a lack of information out there that our eyes never go on there. Very similar to the years and years and years where when Saudis would F up, there would be a
Yes.
private flight and they would go back, home and nobody would talk about it. There was always coverage. This is another country where there seems to be coverage. But I do believe they're
I was
considered
gonna
the
say,
second.
I think exactly the savvy crowd knows the common man. They've escaped the kind of scrutiny that Saudi got after 9/11, and the kind of scrutiny that Iran's got for 44 years or whatever it is, right? They just don't have. They've kind of looked at, yeah, they're a little bit extreme, but they're kind of an ally, and they're not so bad. No, they're like the UAE. They're not like the. I mean, this, obviously, the people here, but they're not like the UAE. They're not like Bahrain. Yeah, they're way worse, and they refused American entreaties to kind of pressure Iran
Yes.
when Saudi was, and they refused Saudi requests to pressure Iran. They firmly said, no, we will be friends with the Americans and the terrorists, and both sides were like, okay. So it's probably time for that to
Yeah,
change.
absolutely. I appreciate
Hold
the
on.
fact.
Hold on.
Okay.
Also, I see
Okay, go ahead,
GP
Sphinx.
in the audience, if you can bring him up.
Okay. Yes, definitely.
Utsa, are you familiar
Usef.
with Dave
No,
Riaboy?
please introduce me to him. Can I just make a concluding point? Do you
Go
mind,
ahead.
sir and ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. And Sphinx, I beg your pardon if we had a misunderstanding there. Okay. And I do regret if there was a misunderstanding. So, like, the last thing I wanted to say is, I guess you guys have probably already covered this, but as you may know, like Hamas, there was an angle, I suspect, that Hamas was, let me rephrase. I think Hamas attacked Israel in an effort to get Israel to, strike Hamas back, so that there'd be a mass casualty event that Hamas would then exploit and essentially stir the pot in the Muslim world, persuade Saudi Arabia to essentially back off from the Saudi-Israeli normalization deal by saying, well, look, how can you normalize relations with Israel? Look at all these dead Muslims. Don't you have a heart, Saudi Arabia? How can you normalize? Yada, yada. This is all like Muslim Brotherhood propaganda. And I think what's interesting is that Qatar benefits from this too, because as you guys know, um, if the Abraham Accords were to collapse and Saudi Arabia or the Abraham Accords were not to be enjoined with Saudi Arabia, there's a security opportunity that Israel and Saudi Arabia could enjoy, which is a collective defense against Iran, right? So we know that Iran would stand to benefit from Israeli-Saudi normalization, but Qatar would also stand to benefit too, for the reason that Qatar is one of Iran's allies. I don't know if people actually know that, but if you study,
Did you say benefit? Iran would benefit from
yes,
Israel?
yeah,
Okay, Iran does not want Israel and Saudi Arabia to have
correct.
a peace.
Yes, correct. That's
Okay.
exactly what I said.
Okay, and then I misheard you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Saudi Arabia is looking for a partner that can provide it a nuclear umbrella. And the United States has not committed to giving this nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis have mused with this idea of enriching civilian nuclear energy and having access to civilian nuclear energy. Um, if Saudi Arabia were to have a real tie to Israel and form and essentially have like a defense pact, that nuclear umbrella that Israel has would fall under Saudi Arabia, thus protecting the country from from any kind of hostilities that Iran would bring about, and it would actually serve as a great deterrence. And so it stands that Iran benefits greatly from this Abraham Accord falling apart and any Saudi-Israeli normalization falling apart. And by extension, Qatar, which is also a very strong ally of Iran, also stands to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a special guest that I was trying to get up here, and he just joined us. Hi, Adrian. How are you?
I'm good, Stealth. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Good, good. Yeah, I can hear you great. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have some hands, but if you wanted to introduce yourself, or if you want to listen a bit, or you want to bring up some interesting subjects related to what's going on right now, anything is helpful.
Yeah, what I think, I listened to you last night, and I just wanted to clarify some things that I'm going to go over. The discussion about Qatar, I definitely want to touch on that a little bit, and I think we should also touch on Turkey a little bit, because we have to remember they house the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, and they're talking about running another Gaza flotilla, which is just putting a bunch of terrorists on a boat and sending them over to Israel, and then saying it's a war crime when the Israeli commandos get on there. So last night I heard a lot of discussion around the attack, the sophistication of the attack, the coordination of the attack, the methods. And yes, they are oddly reminiscent of Al-Qaeda and ISIS attacks. But we do have to remember the individuals who trained Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda eventually trained ISIS, because they're really the bastard child of Al-Qaeda and the Ba'athist Party, if you want to look at it that way. They were trained in the Sudan by Hezbollah, by the IRGC from 1992 to 96. It was to create a Sunni terrorist strike force. So all those tactics, everything that you see, that is all straight out of the Iranian playbook, the Islamic Republic playbook, that's been deployed on the battlefield. And we saw that with Al-Qaeda, especially. We've seen that with especially ISIS, the attacks on bases, on prisons, the prison releases, multiple breaches, using drones, drone swarms, you name it. So that's why you're going to see some of the sophistication there. Now, the question last night was whether, okay, we heard some voices on the street, and it seems for this administration to put this back at Tehran's doorstep, where we know the order was given by the Islamic Republic. Hamas
I'm
does not
sorry,
jump.
what space are you referring to?
He was on MySpace last night listening.
But we weren't talking about this. There was an
Yeah, we were. It was after you left.
It's just relating to the David. Sorry,
Just let him go.
Go
Let him go,
ahead.
please.
yeah,
Because
there's a
there was
post.
another
Yeah.
space about this. That's why I'm asking.
No. He wasn't in any other space. He's just in mine. He's referencing mine. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Adrian.
Okay. So let me get back on track here.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Yeah, the tactics are oddly reminiscent. Now, and the other discussion was about discussions on the street. For the U.S. administration, we all know that this was ordered from Tehran. Hamas does not do anything without the Islamic Republic's orders to do so. They replenish them, they tell them when to fire them, they help them build drone factories, you name it. All right. Same goes with Hezbollah. They are not going to strike until the Islamic Republic tells them to. So they absolutely told them when to strike. Now, it's going to, people are looking at this as being maybe just like just Gaza relationship here. Israel needs to mop up here, but this is, if you see the mobilization and what's happening on all fronts, it's really starting to get quite scary. So if I look at the I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. I'm trying to get back to the voices on the streets. For this administration to put it on Tehran's doorstep, it seems to me that they need to have confirmation of IRGC or MOIS, Ministry of Intelligence Services operators on the ground, Quds Force or MOIS. Until they actually hear that, they're not going to say, yes, it was the Islamic Republic that gave the order here. They are risk averse, and it would run contrary to their policy that they followed, which was really a nuclear policy. It wasn't an Iran policy. So I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to go look at the war crimes issue. I know people are screaming about war crimes here. Now, yes, there absolutely are war crimes here. When you try to commit genocide, when you try to commit ethnic cleansing on a population, that's ethnic cleansing. Now, when I look at the Palestinian population, they seem to be the only refugee population in the world that has actually grown. They're actually classified by the UN in a different category. So usually when you flee your land, that population diminishes. Well, it's actually exacerbated. It's gotten larger. Okay, so just a little bit there. Now, war crimes.
Can you go into that? I know what you're talking about, but maybe other people don't. Can you go into specifically how the Palestinian population is treated differently? Which organization deals with which population?
UNRWA is the main one to look at. I'm just going to go down this real quickly, and we could circle back to that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Now, the biggest war crime, and the one that I've seen a real shift in this is what's scary with the population in Gaza, is the use of human shields. Okay, the use of human shields and where they hide the weapons, it's a double war crime that they're committing there. During the 1970s and into the 1980s, when the Israelis were pulling out strikes at PLO camps that had been overrun, their refugee camps had been overrun by the PLO. These people were held hostage there. The Israelis would come and say, "We're going to hit this camp." They would drop leaflets, and if you ran, you got shot or you got tied to a post, and you had to stay in the camp while all of Arafat's fighters left. Well, to me, I think the radicalization via Tehran has shifted this population. It's shifted with the Islamic Republic's ideology of perverting the whole use of martyrdom, of using human shields. And what you have now is a willing population there. I know a lot of the population there are children. That's for a reason. I mean, Khomeini, during the 1980 to 1988 Iran-Iraq war, it was like a fatwa to produce as many children as possible because they were used as basically minesweepers. Okay, and that's where you come in, this whole perverting of the whole martyrdom issue. So there is an open corridor. They are trying to create an open corridor, but are people leaving? I don't know. It's hard to tell. And then other organizations such as the Red Crescent, I do not trust. They've been caught in propaganda stunts before, especially in Lebanon. One photo separated 10 years apart tried to be attributed to two different strikes. So that's what I'm going to talk about as far as the war crimes. As far as Israel committing war crimes, I don't think it even justifies Israel and the Israeli military. Israel will put their military, and their military will put themselves in harm's way, which is amazing to me, in more risk. They will risk things that our military, that the American military won't do, to spare civilians, to make sure there aren't civilian casualties. And this is not something that you hear through CNN or whatever broadcast you're listening to. Okay. Finally, I'm just looking at this big picture. Phases. I'm an absolute cynic. I've kind of been looking at this for a while, and I kind of projected that what I thought was going to happen was at some point Hamas was going to try and overwhelm the Iron Dome, and then we would see something coming from Lebanon. It's unfolding a little bit differently. So yes, I am a cynic. Usually correct, but when I'm wrong, I am pleasantly surprised. I do expect Hezbollah to get involved in this. Phase one is the ground rate operations inside Israel. Israel is still mopping up operations inside. They're trying to make sure that there's not any terrorists still running around killing people. And they're also softening and prepping the battle space. Phase two is going to be the ground invasion, and that's door to door, but not door to door. You got to remember tunnel to tunnel. And who taught them how to build those tunnels? Hezbollah. Hezbollah built the tunnels that bogged down the Israeli army in the 33-day war. It wasn't executed well by the Israelis, but they're up against a really nasty fight down there. That's where I see it. Now, the phase three, I think that's when Hezbollah is given the order. When Tehran starts to see that Israel is, stretched, or they feel as though they're stretched, they're feeling emboldened. They're also seeing what America's reaction is to all this as it unfolds. They're sitting on 100,000 precision-guided missiles, swarms of suicide drones, and they're going to try, and they will try to overwhelm that Iron Dome system. And then once that happens, you also have to worry about Eastern Front. You have to worry about coming from Iraq, Badr Organization, Qais Khazali's group, Kataib Hezbollah, then you have Syria on the Golan. And that's kind of where we are. And back to the Qatar issue, a lot of people don't understand Qatar's influence. Yes, a lot of the revenue was initially from a shared oil field or gas field with the Islamic Republic. They are not benevolent. They share intelligence. They shared intelligence during the World Cup to crack down on Iranian protesters protesting against the Islamic Republic while they were killing people in the streets back in Iran. So Qatar is not our friend. Policymakers in America, they're either one of two things. They think Qatar is basically Pakistan 2.0, that they're a cutout, that we can deal with the really bad guys. That's foolhardy. We saw how that has worked over 20, 30 years. Pakistan is not our friend. Qatar is not our friend. But they have grown their influence through media. I mean, you look at them, they own Miramax, they have the largest sports portfolio in the world. And Hamas leadership is sitting there. And we've got CENTCOM parked over there. What the hell? Or elements of our intelligence community and military community. And it's okay for Qatar because Raisi and Khamenei says it's okay, or else we would be kicked out of there, which makes you wonder. I have talked long enough. Thank you for that.
I have a question for you, Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
How did Qatar become a non-NATO major ally of the U.S.?
I have no idea. And why Turkey is still a NATO ally, I have well, that's a little easier to answer because they have nuclear weapons there. But designating Qatar as a non-NATO ally, and that was just recently done, that's a mistake. I mean, that's just letting a fox into the henhouse. So
it was under this administration it was done?
Yes.
So stuff like that. I mean, I'm not going to get into the politics, but things like that, that's why I say our adversaries are sitting here watching. So when does China?
My daughter wants to go to a walk.
Hold on. When does China make a move on Taiwan? Okay, so does that happen in 6 months? Does it happen 6 months, 9 months? How does this work for Russia? Does that ease things up for them up there? These bad actors, I would call rogue regimes, have been watching this administration, how we've responded in Afghanistan, how we've responded, it's basically rhetoric followed up with no action. And then actually saying that we're enforcing sanctions on the Islamic Republic and putting down more sanctions. They may be slapping more sanctions on the Islamic Republic, but they're not enforcing them. They've grown their foreign currency reserves from $4 billion to $50 billion in roughly 2.5, 3 years. That's insanity. So, yeah, it's a great move today to freeze that, or at least start freezing that $6 billion. I propose that $6 billion goes right to Israel to pay for the terror that was unleashed and victims of terror.
That would be a shot across the bow for sure.
It would be. I think that's something that we need to entertain. It won't be done, but I wish it was. So there's a lot of things we can do, but it's just been inaction. I mean, we've had
blow up their oil fields.
We keep on moving fleets, more and more ships to the region, and until this point, we kept on moving more and more. But the IRGC was, and this is not the Artesh Navy. This is the IRGC Navy with their bog hammers and whatever they have. They were harassing our fleets, pilots, shining lasers, really menacing. Provocative. They took 2 ships, pirated, hijacked 2 ships. And there's been how many strikes on American targets by the Islamic Republic? Something 72 targets, something, and we've responded 4 times under this administration. So the Islamic Republic thinks they can get away with anything. And when we give messages right now saying, no, we will not get involved in any ground operations or involved in any way, that should not be that says you should say all options are on the table. That should be the message here. We're going to defend Israel's interests. I believe this is a war to exterminate Israel and wipe it off the map. They mean what they say. When you're unelectable and when you're elected or selected and unaccountable to the people, you got to take these people at their word. It's not bluster. They mean it. And this is the mirror imaging error that Americans, Westerners, all have. And until we wake up from this, we're in a lot of shit. I'm sorry for the language.
No, you're spot on in what I'm thinking. Any kind of Russian involvement with what's happening in Israel right now, in your opinion, or the narrative that Russia's more scared of Israel than they are of the U.S. right now? More accurate.
I don't see any Russian involvement right there. I think the Russians are very happy about this. I think the Russians were hoping, and the Chinese were hoping, that the Russian campaign in the Ukraine was going to go swimmingly, and then they were going to easily be able to pivot on, China was going to be able to pivot on Taiwan, and that did not happen. Russia got bogged down, and that kind of put a wrench in Xi's plan. Russia, I think they're going to look at this as an opportunity. We also have the UN arms embargo expiring on the Iranians or the Islamic Republic, which will open up their ballistic missiles, suicide drones to the world market. So Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, North Korea, you name it. So there's another revenue stream to go along with the illicit oil sales. And a much dangerous place.
Okay, could everybody retweet the space for me real quick? These are all the things that I knew, and I wanted to pretend like I was just really a good guesser, and it's based on clear, very easy fact to see. Okay, I'm going to let people ask you questions.
Real quick, it's a subjective, partially subjective, but before this is all said and done, in other words, the body count is not yet complete. Is this going to be the worst terrorist attack of all time worldwide
per capita?
Let me think about this.
Between the abduction and
I mean, come on, come on. In a single
the
day,
beast with the Jews after the Holocaust.
In demographics, it's like 35,000 Americans getting killed. So yeah, I mean, you do the and the numbers. There's going to be more added to that list. We haven't seen this much loss of life for the Jewish community since the Holocaust. That should tell you something. It should also make you draw a clear line on whose side you're on with this.
And you can answer this question later because I want to go to the hands. You can definitely answer it later, but I want you to think about something and maybe answer it later, which is, what do you think what should Israel do the day after, metaphorically and literally speaking, after after it's gone house to house, tunnel to tunnel, sent 200, 300,000 soldiers in there, and destroyed every last Hamas gunman, facilitator, and ever that they could find. What do we do afterwards? So you can answer that later. Just wanted you to sort of have it in mind because I know that people are thinking about that.
Yeah, I'll think that through. It's complicated.
GP, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm on a call just now. Thank you. I'll pass and defer. Thank you.
Freemason.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Stealth, what's up? Monica, what's going on? AB, how are you? So I'm very well connected
I
with the
can't hear
Grand Lodge.
Freemason. Is he speaking?
Yes, he is.
Freemason
We're
is
gonna have to bring
speaking.
you
He's
down.
speaking.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna have to bring
Yeah,
you
and
down.
then
Freemason,
Okay.
drop down. We'll bring you right back up.
Yeah.
All right, no
Stealth will
problem.
call you right back up.
Yeah, let him go. Let's go to Intel, and then we'll go to Herzl, and then we'll get Freemason back up here. Give me 1 second.
Go ahead, Intel. Oh, Intel's also we're losing people. All right. Herzl, go ahead.
Hi guys. Well, I'm gonna take you from all the geopolitics, wonderful stuff and thoughts, and into where we work today. We went down south, just by the border of Gaza, to one of the moshavim. 5 of us guys. We took with us 100 kilos of hamburgers, high quality beef, 3 mangals, which is barbecues, and we cooked 700 wonderful hamburgers with all the trimmings. And now we couldn't get all the 700 soldiers at one place, so we were in like a station there where they gather. It's like a headquarters in the moshav, and we will prepare them, pack them, and special vehicles will take them to the guys in the field. 30, 50, 40 at a time, 100 at a time, 700 pieces. We worked 7 hours straight. The experience I have just seeing diamond soldiers, those guys, first of all, they're beautiful physically, guys. The females and the males and the guys. They're young, they're committed, they're all, we're so happy. And all those hours that we were there, we kept on hearing bombardments and all sizes. And the people from the Mushav that were giving us a hand were telling us it's us beating them. Uh, from from 7 o'clock since we arrived there until 1 o'clock at night, it didn't stop. A barrage of bombardments of all kinds of sounds. While we were there, we had a couple of alarms, so we had to go into a safe place. Uh, Now, what it did to me on a personal level, I mean, we were doing it before the war in those bases, and some of the bases we did it. Some of those guys really disappeared. So we have such an attachment to this project, and it's growing. And next week we're going to have 4 of those. My goal is to serve 4,000 hamburgers, and the burgers that we're getting, this is a South American beef processed in Israel.
Herzl.
Sorry, can I break in? So Israel has informed the UN that Palestinians north of Wadi Gaza should relocate within 24 hours.
Wow. Wow.
I love that message.
Yeah.
Continue, Herzl.
Sorry,
So
continue, Herzl.
just to complete my thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
By the way,
uh,
amazing work. Kudos to you, brother. Kudos to you.
Big time.
you know what I'm telling you? It felt us up, and they are so happy when we're giving them that. When you give a guy a hamburger, you give them a Coke, you give them some sweets, some fruit. It's all in a bag. It's all done with so much love, and it's a nice meal for us. We got 700 of those tonight. I want to get to 4,000 a week. 1,000 each time, calculating everything, blah blah blah. I'm doing a fundraising. Yesterday, some people sent me money through the PayPal. I don't know if I can do that here or not. It's up to the host.
Of course, you can always do it here. Don't, and I'll share it for you for sure.
And look, each hamburger, and we're going to continue with the hamburgers because
Well,
it's good, it's fast,
Herzl, don't worry about
yes.
it. I got you. We'll share it. I
Yes.
just have Adrian for a short period of time.
I'm
So
I'm
hang
going to bring
out.
it up right now
Don't
before I
leave.
put it
Yeah.
Yes.
down.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, guys.
Don't
Herzl.
leave.
You just got me really hungry. Now, Freemason,
Yeah.
you can finish what you were saying.
Thank you,
Hey,
Herzl.
hey.
Thank you for what you're doing, buddy. Thank you, Herzl.
Well, I want to wish everybody, that the unity will cover all of us because really this is the name of the game. In the States, here, everywhere, really. There's two sides to everything. We want to be on the lit side. That's where we are. We're always going to stay there. I'm as a Jew. Chaya is a Jewish girl, woman, sorry, that have a son here. I love you guys. I'm going to bring up here the fundraising thing. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Herzl. Thank you.
Thank you, Herzl. Thank you.
Go ahead, GP.
I think Freemason
Oh,
was about to
sorry.
go.
Go ahead, Freemason.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be very quick. So we lost a cousin on Saturday at the music festival. Um, I have some direct ties with the Grand Lodge of Israel. A friend of mine is pretty high up in the IDF, and what they're saying is about 6 to 8 weeks that they want to try to get into Gaza and maintain control and basically eviscerate the Hamas infrastructure. I just want to touch real quick on the issue of Qatar. We established relations in like 71, 72, but the notion that we shouldn't have contacts and diplomatic forward operating situations there is pretty abstract. I mean, we have to have a place to base from, you know? Obviously, we have Turkey and Qatar. So I just wanted to say that also. Thank you, guys.
Hey, Freemason, I didn't know about your family and everything. Um, I'll DM you something afterwards. I just want to make sure that you guys have some stuff. Are you going to
How
fly
old was
over
your?
there? Are you going to fly there for the funeral?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm running a huge project actually at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, so it requires a lot of time. So my sister's going, and Jewish funerals are very fast. So hopefully I don't miss it, but my sister's on the way.
How old was your cousin, Freemason? If I may ask.
22.
Oh my
Baruch
God.
Dynamis.
Guy or girl?
Guy.
All
Baruch
right, very.
Dynamis.
Baruch Dayan Emet, my friend. May our neshama have an aliyah. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't know you were part of the tribe, Freemason. Okay, I'm going to text you some stuff. I wish I knew sooner. Shit. Okay. Thanks, Freemason, for letting us know. I'm heartbroken.
God bless your family, Freemason. God bless your family.
Totally.
Go ahead, GP.
Ugh. 22 years old kid. Okay.
Hi, if I may take another half a minute. This Shabbat is coming. It's the first Shabbat after Simchat Torah. A lot of families in Israel are going to spend the Shabbat very sadly. A lot of people got hit by that. And I was thinking tonight, that each one of us, really every human being, just on that week, because some of them still sitting Shiva, some of them are on a name which they can't sit Shiva, just to send some love, some good thoughts, The ether will carry it. They really need it. I'm talking about thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. And it's the first Shabbat, it's Bereshit. It's a Shabbat Rosh Chodesh. Anybody who knows it, we're going to bless the month this coming week, the second month of the year, Cheshvan. So that's what I want to bring up.
We should do something tomorrow morning. Else we'll try to get a rabbi. We'll do something early tomorrow morning, or maybe Reliable will have us do something by tonight, a bracha or something for sure.
Can I jump
Yeah.
in real quickly about
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
I am urging all my Jewish friends here tomorrow, do not in the United States or if you're abroad, go to soft targets. I know it's a time of mourning. You have also Shabbat, but yeah,
We're
the
urging everybody
Qatar.
to stay home with family. That's what we're
Okay,
urging.
good.
Well, I know that we're urging that, but in the community that I know here in New York, there's going to be an increased counterterrorism presence here.
Yeah, there will be, but they're going to look for softer targets too.
Yeah, I understand. But the part of New York I'm talking about, Stealth knows, people still will go anyways to synagogue there. Stealth knows exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you do know too.
New York.
What?
Yeah, I New York. I'm Western New York, but I know New York City.
Stealth, can we have Sin as a question to ask?
Sure, go ahead, Sin.
Adrian, pleasure to meet you. I ran into something where I was Googling your name, and I thought maybe it would be really informative. It looks like you were at HJS, and you did an event covering Iran's axis of resistance. This is something that I think would be very formative if you had like a TLDR version of like, right. So for many people, they wonder to themselves like, what? Yeah, how does Iran, project power amidst all these sanctions? Like, how do they reach out, and how are they able to meaningfully project power and influence across the world, despite right the long history of the regime, the sanctions, all the things we already know about, right? It's like, is it a fair ask to say, could you like loosely sort of describe what what you would refer to as their axis of resistance? Is that a fair question? I know it was a panel discussion. I'm not trying to attribute it to you, but I thought it might be something worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Iran's axis of resistance. We see it in South America. If you look at Khomeini's message, it's the same message you see in Hezbollah's 1986 open letter. It's inclusive. It's all about the downtrodden. It's like reading the Communist Manifesto almost. So, putting it in that perspective, it appeals to Latin America in many cases, which had already been indoctrinated. So you see countries such as Venezuela, and Venezuela was actually pulled over to the Iranian fold by Hezbollah. They kind of worked that relationship. So they get a lot of narco-terrorism funding from there. Then you have West Africa, and then you have all their proxies, which they use. Let's see, and the Houthis, and we see it with Hamas and PIJ. We see Hezbollah. We see the ones in Iraq. So they control Iraq now. They've created the Shia Crescent. So they projected power around the region. It's it's pulling in Russia. So when things aren't going well in the Syrian civil war, when things aren't going well, Hezbollah has taken a beating. They've lost a third of their fighting force. What do? You call in the Russians, and they start their aerial campaign. That's when it shifts. Russians, what do they get out of it? They get two bases on the Mediterranean. And so it increases their influence. And you also see China. So the way I look at the world right now, you have three dragons and a bunch of snakes. And I will put the dragons in order of strength to weakness, China being the strongest, Moscow being second, and the Islamic Republic being the weakest out of the three. All right. And then you have a bunch of snakes, and I will put them in Venezuela. I will put that in Qatar. I will put that on North Korea. I will put that on Venezuela. I will put that on Pakistan. So there are a bunch of these other countries that work together. So that's kind of the world order that we're facing right now.
Yeah, I'm tracking, and I have to confess it was somewhat of a loaded question because I not loaded question in a negative way. I was hoping that you would touch specifically on Venezuela because for many people unfamiliar with the IRGC, it is going to be news to them, the amount of influence they have in South America. And when you look at that through the lens of our current border crisis situation, right? Like that border scenario starts to look a lot more dangerous. That's why I opened that box, Professor. I wasn't trying to be disingenuous, but it means more coming from you than it does from me.
No, absolutely. And that Venezuelan relationship has scared me for a decade now. Because I've just seen it grow and grow and grow. And that's what happens. The relationship, it starts at a cultural and then an economic and then eventually a military. And that's where we are. It's a failed state. It's a narco state. Their guy that was really running the show wasn't Maduro. It was a guy who was a Syrian Ba'athist originally, but really he was the Iranian bagman there. Tariq, I forget his name. But in any event, Venezuela is, it's the Islamic Republic always had its influence in the southern cone of Latin America, down in, and they, talk about terror attacks, the Amia bombing. That was all planned in the tri-border area and then carried out in Argentina in the capital. The 1992 embassy bombing, the Israeli embassy bombing, that was all carried out in that tri-border area between Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina. Mossad actually predicted that the next attack in 1992 would come from that area. And in 1994, that was the largest loss of life, I believe, for the Jewish community since the Holocaust. I think this will easily surpass it. That's 85 killed, 300 plus injured. So, but in the northern cone, there really wasn't, in the northern part, and moving into South America, there really wasn't a big influence, but the Venezuela and Colombia as well. Margarita Island, that is just a Hezbollah camp. They make a lot of money off drugs, moving them both to West Africa up and into America, but mostly to West Africa. And then the other big concern is Hezbollah has worked for a while with Las Etas, the narco terrorist group in Mexico. So if they're moving drugs, they're moving bodies, they're moving people. And we know that there's been 161 people caught this year at the border, and the border's a mess. And if we're catching only 161 people on the terror watch list, how many went by? So, the expression goes, the terrorists only have to get it right once, and I feel like we're missing all over the place.
Last quick question. I'm going to thank you in advance, Doc. I really appreciate the time. Is there still a relationship that's meaningful between the FARC and the Hezbollah operatives across the border and that Venezuelan-Colombian border and the North Colombian region?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, FARC.
Okay.
The Colombian government, the whole thing's a joke down there. The Colombian government originally made a deal with the devil. They tried to sign some things, and it was like if you follow the Pablo Escobar case, when it was just a joke. FARC was also when Colombia had a good president in place and what seemed like the only bastion of freedom down there in Latin America. You had Hugo Chavez funding FARC, running terror campaigns, kidnapping campaigns. In fact, one of my best friend, or a good friend from high school, his brother was abducted and held captive for like 6 years by FARC.
I didn't know about. I follow that connection pretty close. I didn't know about Margarita Island, that it's sort of a nest for Hezbollah.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Whatever.
It's a giant training ground. Oh my God.
What's the population of Margarita Island overall, I wonder?
I don't know, but it's growing. It's a lot of terrorists there.
Interesting. All right.
You have the whole Rada clan from there, which is, he was the main planner. I mean, you have Munilla, who planned the Amia bombing, but the guy who was on the ground coordinating everything, he started off in Colombia. His family's still there. Then it's part of one of his clans. Then he went down to Argentina. Met Mohsen Rabbani, became good friends with him. If you don't know Mohsen Rabbani, he's an Iranian cleric, and he's an Iranian cleric who was on the ground also helping coordinate the 1984 Amia bombing. So, yeah.
What's the not Mohsen Rabbani? What's the other general's name? I know Imad Mughniya. What's the other general's name?
Saif. Let me. Oh God, Rada. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's the Rada clan. I'm trying to think what his first name is.
As you're looking that up, do you think this narrative that then less than 5 people knew what was coming, and that it was probably training and coordination for a year, and the way that they did it? Anything surprise you out of those 3 statements, that less than 5 people knew, that they took about a year for training, and the way that they did it? Anything look unique or signature of anything or track as anything?
Yeah, as I said before, a lot of it looked very, it was sophisticated. It was pre-planned. The targets were already picked, and then I think it was just like a moment of opportunity. They saw that concert there, they saw the kibbutzes there, and they just concentrated their raid on that one part. I think the Israelis, on their part, we have time to look at the intelligence failures afterwards. I think for all the technology and cyber capabilities that they have, I think they almost fell into the American trap here of almost relying too much on that and not enough on human intelligence. Because, God, somebody should have seen this coming. I'm sorry. There will be a day when we'll discuss that, and now is not the time. But how our intelligence agency, American intelligence agency, didn't pick it up doesn't surprise me. It's kind of broken the way I see it. Mossad, that's kind of scary that they were that they missed this,
Well, for
But as
the
again, they only have to get it right once. They only have to get it right once. And this was a well coordinated attack that just overwhelmed them at a
Adrian,
time when the country
can
was
I have a
celebrating Yom
question
sure,
Kippur,
go ahead. Go
etc.
ahead. Thanks.
for the U.S. intelligence part. This I don't mean this with respect to the Israeli intelligence, but for the U.S. Don't you think it was more a matter of just total forced blindness on our part because this administration wants the nuclear deal so badly to work, just gave them this $6 billion, was going to give this $6 billion, has eased sanctions since 2018, and has allowed Iran to make billions of dollars per week selling oil to China. When you do that, it is very it's hard to then see the beneficiary of those actions as an agent of terror, of
Yeah.
state-sponsored terror. So I think that the reasons, right, that the intelligence failures for Israel and the U.S., I think, were vastly different. I think the U.S. couldn't see it. They chose not to see what was right there. For Israel, I can't speak.
Yes, I'm not going to go into actual specifics, but I have, over the last 2.5 years, given warnings to
Real
certain
quick, there's an update.
age.
Real quick, sorry, from the IDF. There are an additional 12 names of IDF martyrs. Families were notified. So that's another 12 soldiers gone. Real quick, Stealth, please look at your WhatsApp. Thanks. Go ahead. Continue, Adrian.
Yeah, Sphinx, I agree with all your points here, and there's really hard. You can't disagree with it. The Americans, and this is why it's so important. I think for if anybody's in the audience, if you find any clips that you suspect someone is speaking Farsi, please send them to me. Okay, because our intelligence agencies, over the last 2.5 years, I've run stuff to agents and it's gone up the line. And then when it gets to the political level inside the intelligence agency, they say, no, not on Iran. We're not doing anything there. So it's become political. So that's where we are. They don't want to see their narrative fall apart, which is disgusting, despicable on so many levels.
So, Adrian, can I ask you
Yeah.
something about that? Because, a few days ago, a clip was played, and I'm fluent in Farsi, and I was listening. So I was listening for the Farsi. Supposedly there was Farsi in there, and I didn't hear any. However, I was telling the story to my mother this evening in the car, and she says there actually is a clip where Farsi is spoken. Are you aware of such a clip, and can you send that to me?
The one that Stealth identified last night, I've run that past several people, and the person who is the most fluent in English and Farsi says that's Farsi.
Where is this clip? Sorry to interrupt. Where's this
Stealth,
clip?
do you want to send that clip over? Can you? It's the one where
everybody's gonna need to give me 2 minutes because she's finishing my nail polish, guys.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a multitasker.
It's the one where a guy is saying, "Don't be afraid," and he's saying it in Farsi. That's what he's saying. Another contact, a senior journalist, said that it almost sounds like he's saying a term almost like an Arabized French, like allez, allez. Okay, so there's been a little confusion around that. I agree. But I sent this to one person that I absolutely trust, who knows, who's absolutely brilliant, doctorate, and he says, yes, that is Farsi. That's the one clip. I need more. Okay. There's been other ones that I've been able to rule out saying, no, that's not.
Okay, because I want to make sure if there's any Farsi, because I did say I absolutely did not hear Farsi, and you're going to find it's going to be hard for you to find someone who's more disgusted with the current regime in that country than I am. So if there is, I would like a chance to listen to it if there's another clip, so that I can correct that, because the clip that I heard, I didn't hear anything. But if there is, I would like to confirm that as well, because I am fluent.
Those absolutely need to be cobbled together. Those need to be cobbled together because a lot of people don't realize this. This is eerily reminiscent. This is much bigger scale, much bigger, but this is eerily reminiscent of Benghazi during an election year, hitting a soft target, hitting that, and going and just overrunning a place. What people don't realize, that was not actually Al Qaeda cut out or whatever they say. Ansar al-Shabaab. It was an Iranian proxy. They were running the show on the ground, and there were IRGC operators. What I want to show is that there are IRGC operators on the ground in Gaza, because that's the only way this administration seems to pay attention. It's sad that we're at a place that's a smoking gun, but that's where we need to be.
And then my other question is, this is what came up earlier when this video was brought up, right? So my thing is, and I wrote an article about it earlier this week. It's clear to me Iran is knee deep in this. None of this would have happened without total Iran involvement, financial backing, probably strategic advisement, possibly training. So this is what I said to my mother when she said, "Oh no, there are clips where Farsi spoken." I said, "We already know this attack is all Iran, right? So this wouldn't have been possible without Iran." So what is and you tell me this, and I ask you this sincerely because I want to know the answer. I want to be informed about this when I am asked. What is the benefit of proving that there is a clip where Farsi is spoken when I can give you all of this evidence to show you that they are bankrolling the entire operation? So what is one clip going to, why are people focused on one clip? Can you explain that to me? And I don't ask that in a critical way.
That seems to be the way Secretary Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and everybody else, Kirby, seem to define it. They don't see any, they talk all about Iranian operations, but it seems to be the red line is boots on the ground in Gaza, when we know that they're operating in the rear somewhere. And the fact is, Hamas and the Islamic Republic do not want those videos to come out, nor does the Biden administration. So you said training, weapons. Yeah, training, weapons, coordination, surveillance, reconnaissance, pre-planning, you name it. They've done it. Hamas gets $100 million a year from the Islamic Republic, and that doesn't include 93% of their military budget, or their military hardware that comes from the Islamic Republic. So, yeah, I mean, everybody knows they're knee deep in it. I mean, it's sad that we're at a place, and that's what you have when you don't have an Iran policy. You got a Iranian like a nuclear policy that's flawed to begin with. So,
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that Blinken and Biden and all them, they don't want to acknowledge this because they're going to have to admit that they've been dealing with terrorists this whole time.
yes.
And
Well,
you
that's
know
why
what?
we need the video. That's why we
But
need the video so
here's
we
the
can
thing.
say these are Farsi speakers. You guys are saying we don't see any direct involvement. We all know that's a load of BS.
But
so
are you
the
aware
only way
of
to
the
prove to
video of Hamas people in Hamas yesterday going on an Arabic news site detailing how the Iranians have helped them with exactly what I said?
This is what I studied. This
mean,
is my life. This is
that's
my
way
life.
more than a video catching.
Oh, I understand. I'm with you, but I'm not running the country. I'm not in our intelligence. You know, I'm not Blinken. I'm not Jake Sullivan. For some reason, well, we know the reason. They just don't, because it invalidates everything they've been working for the last 3 years. They thought that this cozying up to the Islamic Republic was going to bring peace in the Middle East, and look what it's done. It's set it on fire. Okay. So, and it goes back, if you look at and I don't want, there's been failed administrations. We haven't really had a consistent Iran policy ever, except for, I would say, the last 2 years of the maximum pressure campaign under Trump. I think that's one thing that he was brilliant at. The other stuff,
Can I ask a question?
But 1 second. Yeah. But this
Jeep is next. I'm sorry.
It became very partisan. It became very partisan, and things started to shift where we didn't have an Iran policy. We had a nuclear policy when we thought that it was going to be the path to peace under the Obama administration. Then nothing was going to derail it. Even trying to blow up a DC restaurant to kill the Saudi ambassador. You name it. So I'll let someone else come in.
Real quick, Stealth, can you please look at your WhatsApp?
Yeah, you're going to have to wait. Can we go to GP? Because I can't move my hands right now.
Yes.
I don't have your WhatsApp still.
Not you, Ariel. GP, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks. First of all, the previous speaker but one did say that Iran, just a mistake, and Qatar would benefit from the treaty between Israel and Saudi giving a nuclear umbrella, which is what I heard. I heard.
Too, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy. Okay.
Yeah, I heard that too. So the second thing is that the clips or the crescent of influence of Iran across the MENA region has also been facilitated by Obama's administration abandonment of Iraq to 4 Iraqi Shia militias, the Badr organization, Kataib Hezbollah, Asid al-Haq, and Hizballah Harakat al-Nujabi, and similarly with their influence in Syria. And as Charles spoke to, I think is gone now, or Adrian, I should say, no, he's not, Venezuela. I'd be interested, though, to hear regarding Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS, and their activities in El Salvador, and what your view on that is, Adrian. And also with respect to Farsi speaking, the video on the post, 6th from last post, that the article I wrote yesterday about the Jeep Defender, black Jeep Defender, is 100% confirmed as the Somali saying tomorrow, and responding in Farsi to him, the guy driving the black Jeep Defender says, call me. So that's the sixth, and the need for these sound bites, Sphinx, is just to put it in front of these people for definitive rather than general, obvious Iranian and Al Qaeda involvement. But that's in the clip there, Adrian, and I have four more with Farsi.
That Somali one's interesting. I knew that one was not right, but there's another one, but that says, okay, did they outsource? Because does Hamas have that many people to overrun this and to create? They got a lot of terrorists, but do they have that many skilled fighters to overwhelm and create a terror attack on that magnitude? Did they bring in Al Shabaab, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the Gaza Strip? So, it makes sense that they're on the ground.
Yeah, because the thesis there is that Ilan Omar, Rosa Olsen from the FLMN in El Salvador, who's an Al Qaeda affiliate, and also FLMN and their tactics and Al Shabaab's and the first 36 hours of the approach of Hamas during the incursions were different tactics and reminiscent of Al Shabaab and FLMN tactics, and the importance of getting Al Shabaab and Somali Arabian dialect and Farsi speaking extracts from these videos. So, do you have an opinion though on the El Salvadorian angle in terms of when I spoke about the crescent of influence in MENA, and then you spoke about Venezuela? What about El Salvador and Central America?
All of South America is a major concern. The countries that I've been most focused on, almost all of them, but El Salvador has kind of fallen off because right next to it is Nicaragua, and I know Mohsen Rezai's made multiple visits there. Cuba is also a concern. Venezuela is obvious concern. Argentina is a concern. And Latin America's fallen like a bunch of dominoes in a really bad direction. That is very friendly and cozy with the Islamic Republic. Now, with the Ministry of Intelligence, I will say this: everybody has to remember that if you've got an embassy in your country that is representing the Islamic Republic, the top floor on there is a listening station. They're a bunch of spies. The guy listed as the third secretary, he's a Moise agent. His name, it's not his real name. Everybody coming out of Moise is given a pseudonym. You don't know who they actually are. So these are assassins that carried out a lot of the assassins and up until the 1990s, and then it was kind of handed over to the IRGC. So, but if it's operating in less permissive environments, such as, let's say, Western countries, and the Mois are going to be the ones doing a lot of the operations. But they're the intelligence. Everybody focuses on the IRGC, but the Mois, if you look at it, the IRGC's got roughly 300,000 people employed, and they've got their own intelligence unit, and they're rather sloppy about things. And the Cafe Milano plot exhibits that. That was a Quds Force operation, and it was garbage. Thank God it didn't happen. But Moise, you only have about 60,000 employees, and they are assassins, they're spies, they're surveillance, they do everything. So they kind of fall off the radar when people are looking at the Islamic Republic and their ways, their tentacles that are reaching out and how they commit terror attacks. It all starts with, a lot of cases, the ambassadors. They fly out of the... If you see an ambassador from Iran fly out of your country and a neighboring country, and then the neighboring country, it's probably a good idea to get out of your country as well. It's scary because that's the pattern. We saw that in Argentina with the Amia bombing. All the ambassadors from neighboring countries all flew home.
Could you speak to any footprint or signature you see between Moyes and GRU cooperation in the recent 6 to 12 months?
I cannot. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and a lot of these groups all operate with each other. They found common cause. And this is what I think is really scary about what we find today, is that in the Cold War, you found a divided let's say, Axis powers, if you want to look at them, China, Russia, they weren't united. They were actually working together. There was a wedge between them. Right now, you not only have the big powers working, the nasty powers working together that are threatening to us, but then all these other little surrogates that are kind of falling in line and forming this axis of resistance. So that's a scary thing. They're all working together. And then if you look on our side, the West, there's so much bickering between the US, UK, Germany, France. I mean, Germany's just shameful in some of their actions, just with everything. But just in their negotiations with the Islamic Republic, our government acted shamefully, but the Germans and the French, they were really bad.
I've posted that public domain Farsi Somali post to the first tweet on your timeline. If you throw me a follow, I'll send you through the non-public domain version and the other clips that are being worked on right now, which are Farsi identified, but just we're getting the translation right now.
Got it. Following you back. Done. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Do you want to bring S here? And then could somebody invite Michael and Noam for me, please, from Israel? If you guys wouldn't mind.
I'll invite Noam. I don't think I follow Michael, so I don't know if I'll find him quickly.
Okay, it's Peter _ I think GIF.
And GP, did you put it in the group chat?
This is the one. Yeah, I'll drop it now. I dropped it about 12 hours ago, but I'll drop it again. The public domain one starts with infiltrating the dark web of extremism, the nexus of the IRGC, Al-Shabaab, FLMN, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the curious meeting of Ilhan Omar and Karen Souza last week in El Salvador.
Adrian, yeah, sorry,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So just a quick question. One of the more, I think, the theory that has resonated with me about the attack and why Hamas would do something so audacious came from a gentleman by the name of Avi Sakharov, he writes for the Times of Israel. He's a longtime Palestinian affairs reporter, speaks fluent Arabic, a member of a former special unit that embedded themselves with the Arab population, and the co-creator of Fauda. That's kind of besides the point. But his theory was that they were trying to do an audacious attack, but that they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams, and they kind of lost control of the attack at some point, maybe with the follow-on people who stormed the border, whatever it was, right? And therefore they killed and captured a lot more people than they thought they were going to be able to, and therefore they did not, because they succeeded much beyond what they thought they were going to do. He thought their goal was probably to kill a couple dozen soldiers, maybe kidnap some more, and bring it back, and that would be big enough, but might be able to straddle the line where Israel would still feel compelled to do sort of the normal diplomatic dance and what have you, and feel constrained from doing a full-on attack. And therefore, his theory was basically that because they didn't anticipate the success that they would have, and they kind of lost control of their attack to some extent, they therefore did not anticipate the counter response, because it's clear right now they're going to have a full invasion, and the goal is going to be to eradicate them from government and with military capabilities. So what do you think of that theory?
That theory right there, I don't take much case in that theory for a couple of reasons. Number one, Hamas does not do something unless they want to, unless they're told to. They're not going to pull off this attack. They knew that this is a type of attack that they had never pulled off before. Israel has not seen this before. This was different. So they were expecting bigger results. Then there's the counter narrative, and I will look at the 1979 hostage crisis. At one point early on, people were saying that events had spiraled outside of Khomeini's control, when that was just a charade. What he was doing was he was running the whole show. At first he was like, oh, and then he was like, he saw the American response. He saw that Carter wasn't going to do anything, and he took it and ran with it. But at first he was like, oh, and the Western press was like, oh, this has gotten away from Khomeini. He's come back to save the country, but this hostage crisis is getting away from him. No, it hasn't gotten away from him. He wanted it. So, and then he pushed it once he saw the impotence of the American administration at the time.
But not that he didn't want, not that they didn't want it. Obviously, they did it, and it was meticulously planned. We all agree on that for a year or two, and probably with a state actor and or IRGC people, kind of, and or Hezbollah trainers and been vetted, etc. For sure, they wanted to do something bigger than usual, but basically his theory is that because why would they invite the doom? Because there's no question Gaza is going to be taken over fully from the Rafah crossing to all of Gaza City, all the tunnels, all of it. It's all going to be taken over. It's going in time. So why would they
Yeah.
invite that? Basically,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
why
this is the mirror imaging error that we have. Why would they do that? They think they are doing. Why would they use human shields? Why are they okay with going and blowing themselves up? Because they think they're going to heaven, and they think that this is the pathway to heaven. It's an ideology. It's a sick ideology. And we need to recognize that. That's why they will do something like that. And if they escape from this, they'll be rich. These guys are kleptocrats. They just line their pockets, and they have for years. But they're paymasters. We have to remember this. They're paymasters. They've got no revenue. They can't pay their electric bill. Israel provides 50% of the electric into the country. So it's just, and all the UN funding, and they've never been able. They smashed the greenhouses that were built by the Israelis. They ruined the agricultural base there, and they turned it into a terror den. At the time when it was done, Ariel Sharon, he said, Gaza, it's tough to defend that area. It's really tough coming across that Bedouin area in the Sinai Peninsula. There's so much gun running, arms smuggling, you name it, that could get it. So why don't we just do a land for peace deal here? And look what it's turned into. It's just put them closer and closer to your doorstep. So you need that buffer zone there. At the end of the day, Hamas is given the order, they have to. And, if the success happens, I don't give a shit, quite frankly, if they did. Unfortunately, they did better than than everybody was expecting. But now they need to be taken care of, and people need to understand this is a hateful ideology. I'll go back to when I was teaching in college. I'm out of it now. I had a student come over from Syria during the Syrian civil war, and I had her for 3 semesters, different classes, all Middle Eastern classes, one specifically Arab-Israeli conflict. Everything was either Assad's problem or Israel. They were the two main problems in the world. And despite all the efforts to try and say, read this and just try and open your mind a little bit to this, it's difficult to erase 30 years of propaganda. Okay. And that's what you have in these territories. And it's gotten more virulent, more violent, more dangerous with the Islamic Republic's ideology infused into this movement.
No question.
That's scary.
No question.
And you see it on social media. Hold on.
Go ahead.
And you see it on social media the same way, like in these very large spaces we have here. That's why we're trying to create a counter narrative. But it is, even in the newer generations, I mean, you can see it by the protests. I mean, that like across the world, that the NLP, whatever they use, the propaganda techniques, is effective, it's complete, and it's going to last 50 years based on what I'm seeing, unless you completely make it illegal, outlaw it, you start deporting people. It's the only possible other way. Or you start retraining in the schools, or you ban the ability to have, terrorist organizations be, protested for. I mean, it's very complex. You'd have to go as extreme as France.
And I know for a fact that Khamenei and some of his key planners and individuals they think that they honestly, and they've been trying to, they believe that they can be successful at creating a race war in America. So they fuel those type of protests. They want to destabilize us any way possible. So you'll see funding going into some of those movements as well. It's no coincidence that the very, very, very radical individuals, I won't even call them left, I call them, communist, Marxists, violent Marxists, they find common cause with the Islamic Republic. And that's what's getting spit out in the universities. That's why you see all these college Ivy Leagues and the elite, let's say, public universities having these despicable, shameful counter rally.
Protests.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what. I think it's just. I think it's
They're
incitement to
pro-terrorist
violence. I think
demonstrations. They're
it's.
pro-terrorist
I think.
demonstrations. Yeah,
I think it's incitement to violence. I mean,
it
it's
is.
sooner or later. When start taking pictures of these bastards, and when something happens, First Amendment only goes so far. You can't incite people to violence.
Had a long
You
chat
sound like
about this yet.
GP. We
Yeah, I
just
had a
talked
long
about this.
yeah, I had a long chat about that yesterday, Adrian, on three separate occasions when I popped in for 15 minutes at a time about the forum which I published for radicalized called glorification, incitement to violence. It's not suppression of free speech. There is rules within our societies. Absolute free speech does not exist in Western democracies, and it is because you cannot go to the streets with a flag of a prescribed international terrorist organization, glorify their actions, and then encourage others to support their cause financially and with their posts and so on, or whole spaces on digital platforms. It is illegal. I mean, there's nothing, it's not a debate. It's nothing to do with free speech. It's called, as you say, the incitement of violence, directing terrorism, facilitation of terrorism, and amplifying terrorist content. But it seems to be a very hard concept to get past free speech absolutists. Who seem to consider the call, and a very interesting example of this was a very high profile space host 2 days ago posted, without air quotes, a direct call for gathering at a particular location, gave the time, the date, the location, and I pointed out to him that the optic and the threshold for, news versus acting as a proxy organizer for a prescribed terrorist organization was that it fell very dangerously. Well, it was over the threshold, and within 2 minutes it was edited from down without the logistics into just a comment and a breaking news, and then just the statement with respect to the call to action. Anybody amplifying CTAs on behalf of Hamas spokespeople and giving logistics with respect to meeting points is committing a crime. It's nothing to do with free speech. Seems super difficult, Adrian, to get people to process that, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. I run into the same case, and I've gotten in disagreements, and I would consider myself one of the strongest. I mean, free speech is central. It's center to our civilization. I mean, they use it against us, and we can't. It's used. They use it against us to operate inside, say things, and we can't respond. So
Adrian, I've never been more of an immigration hawk than I am today. Like, I've vacillated over the years between like, oh, let's kind of be semi-open, and again, I'm never going to hate anyone just based on what nation they come from, whatever. But there's certain trends, and the fact that we're not doing, I think it should be mandatory for us to do ideological screenings. Honestly, of any new migrants or any new immigrants that we want to take going forward, because it's crazy. There is no other group that you could perpetuate a massacre and mass rape and mass torture and mass kidnapping, and then publicly go out by collectively nationwide by the thousands and say
child rape and child
child
murder
rape,
and
yeah,
child beheading.
child
I mean,
beheading,
we can go on and on and on.
immolation, right? Just pure below ISIS level, arguably
Setting
savagery.
people
yeah,
on
yeah,
fire in front of each other and
And
having a
then
and
go out in
party.
public in an American city and show your fucking face because
yes,
the
yes.
progressive, some part of the progressive movement says you're anti-colonizer or whatever.
Yeah, and
Adrian, just on that point, sorry,
this is what
just before
scares
you
me.
speak,
Yeah,
on the free speech, just to put it in context, our free speech in my country is being removed in favor of protected categories such as
oh
the
yeah, I know where this is
pro
going.
Palestine, yeah, the
Yeah,
pro Palestinian protest, which desecrated the memorial outside the Israeli embassy, where the police force moved on the Israelis and allowed
yeah,
the pro Palestinians to destroy. Uh, both of whom would fall under the protecting subjective adjudication
yeah,
of categories. Now, the thing about free speech is that free speech in Western democracies, with our country as the canary in the coal mine, is the citizens of the country are not allowed to say anything about the people who come in unvetted, and the people who come in unvetted can report you, not just even based on actual speech. You can be imprisoned for 5 years now if somebody says that you may have written to yourself in your diary that you were upset with the fact that Hamas and, generally speaking, global jihadism is getting a foothold and support as a result of apologists in the West. That would be considered a hate crime under the legislation which is about to become law in our country and has a tariff of 5 years due to subjectively adjudicated ideologues. So this free speech debate, and unfortunately, I don't think Americans quite understand that Europeans don't enjoy the free speech, constitutional right to free speech, that we don't enjoy that, and it's been devolved. And I'll wrap with this. I'm accused yesterday when I told people of the submission form for radicalized content that they can submit, of making lists of people, which is anti-free speech. It is not, as I previously mentioned, anti-free speech to report people who are amplifying the content and logistics and CTAs of terrorist organizations. So I just thought I'd make that clear, because I've stood for 137 days in front of our presidential palace and made a clip every day about the resistance to free speech, even though there's no power of veto now, as it has moved through our parliament. But this is happening across Western Europe, and no intervention by our police force. And finally, I'll say this: the Common European Asylum System, which was signed by all 27, not only says that a migrant, and let's get definitions right, legal immigration, migration, asylum seekers, and refugees are 4 different things. And the conflation of those particular definitions has allowed tens of thousands of unvetted male migrants to enter the country without passport, without visa, with the abandonment of border control, to be shipped to the 4 corners of our country under the Common European Asylum System, which says that even when they arrive without papers, and even if you do manage to identify them, it is against their human right to ask their country of origin regarding their background, which means that we currently have 127 people on the global terrorist watch list, 15 Interpol most wanted, 4 triple murderers, one of whom was identified. The police would do nothing about it. They contacted the Zimbabwean authorities, who put out an international arrest warrant. They arrested him, gave him a new identity, and sent him back into our community with his wife and child. So this is the upside down progressive left idea of civil rights of migrants unvetted versus free speech and the abandonment of border control in Western democracies. And today, we are going to see on Friday the 13th, as a result of the call to global jihad, we've already got a high terror alert here. We had 7 bomb threats yesterday, and there is an expectation of a marquee event in our capital city today and one other location, and one has already been foiled. And yes, we have thousands of people in our city centre last night outside what is considered to be the absolute pinnacle of our gas Jews, death to Israel, and not one news media outlet, none of our police force, or any other politician has condemned it. Quite the opposite. They are actually wearing Hamas insignia in our parliament.
Is that Claire Daly?
Adrian, it sounds like a reset button time. I don't know what to say. I mean, here they said death to America.
All I can say is that with the free speech, there is a threshold here, and it's, with the day of rage and all this. I hate using this term because they use it on the media. They say lone wolf, which means you're not connected with any organization. When I view this as a much larger, vast conspiracy, you pollute the minds, you're no longer a lone wolf. But let's say you have a person, the underwear bomber, if anybody remembers him, he was considered kind of not really a lone wolf, but there's been individual, the Fort Hood shooter, he was considered a lone wolf. He wasn't a lone wolf. He was indoctrinated. But now we're entering a stage where you might get some kind of, I hate to use the term lone wolves, but they are kind of lone wolves. They also imbibe this Jew hatred, which is what it's become. and they take it out on the population. And that's why these rallies that are saying this horrendous, despicable, there's no words for it. That's not free speech. That's incitement. So reset it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's disgusting.
Yeah. We'll
just last word on that, Stealth, before you do the reset. Those lone wolf, I'll send you this too, Adrian. Back in 2014, we did a wide-ranging study on this development of jihadi singular attacks as these lone wolf / mentally ill people who decide to go out, just because they woke up one morning with a bad headache and a despicable hatred of Westerners. The radicalization concept and the concept of scarcity and the way they radicalize people remotely for action in Western democracies. There's a detailed report. There's a public version and a private version. I'll send you both, the public and private. I posted the public version on the last post on the Nest right now. I'll send you the private version too. This was regarding ISIS and their tactics around their media wing and the remote radicalization of the multiple attackers who they empowered, including the Bataclan and the Thalys train massacre people, and 7/7, of which many of the people who carried out those attacks came through the soft underbelly of jihadi entry into Europe, which is the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, let me just I'll put an exclamation point on this. The Salman Rushdie stabbing and attempted assassination. Once you make that list, you no longer get off that list. Salman Rushdie's on that list. He's still on the list because he's still alive. Everybody contributed that to some guy who was a lone wolf who drove from New Jersey. His fake driver's license, ironically, had the name Imad Munir. If you don't know who he is the premier assassin for Hezbollah. He shaped, molded Hezbollah. And now they're finding that it did have origins overseas. They're still investigating it. It's the FBI. They're slow about it. It's an attempted murder trial at this point. But it's not
a long time. How long? It's been over 2 years, no?
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been like a year and a half because I went in and warned the FBI in my back door about that. Not about him, but assassination.
Angela, you just have to bust in.
Okay, sorry,
Can you guys hear Angela? Can you hear Angela?
Sorry, there's an update and we have to pay special attention. At 7:40 Israel time, there's going to be another announcement by the IDF spokesperson. So I just want everyone to make sure that we're aware of that.
At 7:40, so in a little less than an hour from now?
Yeah.
Should I pipe in the audio?
Yeah, and then I think we'll with Stealth's permission, after that, maybe we'll go till that briefing's done, talk 5 more minutes, and then call it a night till the morning. It's my idea, but what do you think?
It looks like they're going to talk about...
We'll do A-B. Simmer down. We'll talk about that in the back channel.
Okay. No, I'm cool. We can go for now. It's all good. Can I ask everyone in the meantime to repost the space,
I'm just getting used to your voice tonight.
Oh, thank you, baby. Can you guys all repost the space, please? Now. That's the cost of entry for listening. By the way, guys, you should know, in terms of countering narratives, on a positive note, so many negative notes, but on a positive note, the earlier space that chat started has picked up a total of, I think, about 435,000 total listeners over the day. 435,000. So we are doing a good job, and with amazing analysis, doing a great job countering narratives. So keep it up. And repost the space. Listeners too.
Ravi, go ahead and listen. Are you going to say something, Sin?
Yeah, quickly. I think just on Adrian's point, it's fantastic points, and I've been arguing from the beginning, the Iran angle, the Qatar angle. But I also wanted to ask you a question, Adrian, because we know, as Sim said very correctly, about the Iran-China connection. So I always go down to the root cause. So I really want you to speak about the larger game that is being played by China, Iran, Qatar, and of course North Korea and Venezuela and Cuba in this entire turmoil that is post G20. So if you could really speak about the larger piece on the energy crisis and why this is being done and why Israel has been clearly been what is the word and I don't want to use any insensitive word, but you know exactly what I mean, because this has been beyond gruesome. So if you could really speak about the larger game that the world is going through right now, and of course the 2024 elections and all these pieces coming through.
Yeah, those are good questions. And the easiest way I can put this is that Iran, China, or I'll say the Islamic Republic. I hate saying Iran because it's the wrong connotation. The Islamic Republic, China, and Russia, they all triangulate. That's what they do. I look back on this, I look back on what we could have done differently, and the biggest mistake the US made was deciding to ship their manufacturing base to communist China instead of the world's largest democracy in India. Now, India is in a place where they're in a dangerous neighborhood. They got Pakistan next door. They got China right above them. China's got designs on them, no matter what. Modi's doing a good job there, but he's got to play the balancing act. And it's kind of like the same balancing act MBS and the Saudis need to play in their region. So it's really difficult. And I know Iranian influence is been spread, and that ideology has been spread into India as well and into the Indian subcontinent. So they really do want to I mean, India is the world's largest democracy, and Iran, China, Russia are all dictatorships. They don't want democracies. So they will do what they can, and then they'll use their other Qatar, Venezuela, to apply pressures in other areas. Roughly right around 1991, 1992, after the first Gulf War, and then after the Bosnia-Herzegovina operations, the Chinese and the Russians sat back and said, okay, we can never, ever defeat the United States on the battlefield. So what we have to do is we have to, the Americans had defined warfare, and they are dominant in it, and they create this global war, order of warfare and what you can play in. And the Russians and the Chinese realize we can't take them front on. So what they've done is and the Chinese came up with one of this, it's unrestricted warfare doctrine. And they don't confront us in areas where we can be strong. They go to what we could call liminal warfare where it's tough to distinguish whether it's actually warfare for us, but they know it's actual warfare. For us, it's like, are they doing like fentanyl crisis? They will use climate, they'll use all sorts of warfare to cyber warfare, climate warfare, you name it, drug warfare, to try and undercut, destabilize stable countries. But I think at the end of the day, we have to remember that at the very core, Iran, China, and Russia are very unstable countries. They got a lot of problems, and that's why the West really needs to unite and take on these countries in a united front and says, no, we're not going to let you do these type of things. So this is why, this is the Hamas raid here, this terror attack. It is on an unprecedented scale, and it should wake everybody up and realize there's good and evil in the world. We're really kind of living in a binary world, bipolar world, and we need to get on one side or the other. I'm sorry. It's just kind of the way it is.
I know it's outside your area, and so just super quick. I know it's outside your. Yeah, go ahead, Ravi. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to finish the point. When the G20 summit happened and they announced the Middle Eastern economic corridor going through Saudi Arabia to Israel and all the way up, I said that time, I said, this is a great sign, but there are people, especially China and Iran, will never accept it. And I said this, I think on the 15th of September in our Twitter space in India, I said this MEC corridor is not going to go well for the way the world is, especially for Iran, Russia, and China. And unfortunately, we are seeing it. So your points are absolutely spot on.
Yeah, I was on the station in India during that G20 summit, and I twice covering it, and I know what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on with that. Thank you.
I was going to ask you if either at your think tank at the Arabian Policy Institute or maybe not at some. If you know any colleagues at other think tanks that are working on countering the domestic extremism we're seeing here, basically as a manifestation of what's occurring there, and what to do about it. Because I think it's something we're going to have to turn our eyes to very, very soon in the aftermath of we in the West. I mean, in the aftermath of this attack.
Yeah, the domestic extremism, I would
This
say,
kind of pro jihad, pro open, this
yeah,
specific type of extremism. Yeah.
I'll point you to one publication. It's focused on Western Islamism. And it's a project from Middle East Forum. I've written for them before, but they pulled me in just to focus on the Islamic education centers like the one in Houston. A lot of their work has been on Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood organizations in the United States. So it's called Focus on Western Islamism, and the best guy you probably follow is Sam, SAM, and the last name is Westrop, Westrop.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think.
I think
Go ahead.
Sin is waiting, right? Sin, you were waiting.
I was just going to say, I'm hearing a lot of scuttlebutt that the IDF's announcement tonight may include some details about special forces activity that has been going on. It seems like they may be prepared to announce some of that. I can't guarantee that, but there's a lot of scuttlebutt that they may be addressing and
some rescuing.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think that they're going to acknowledge some special forces activity well, we know for sure took place early and maybe as recent as the last few days that everyone knew was sort of going on, but we've been waiting and this is normal, right? You want all your operators to be safe. I don't know how much they'll give us tonight, but it's a possibility. And if they do acknowledge that opens up all kinds of we would gain a lot of information from that regarding all kinds of different things and the timeline.
Yeah, if they do release anything, it'll be it won't be detailed. It'll be whether they successfully recovered or retrieved bodies, unfortunately. That's what the briefing will probably be about. If it's special forces operations, usually
we do know they did an operation earlier this week where they captured the deputy naval commander, or whatever, of the Hamas naval forces or some shit like that.
Yeah,
which is crazy that Hamas has naval forces, but yes,
they do.
That was within
Gaza. I
also
suspect they're going to highlight the videos that were released to the IDF today of the IDF's equivalent to Dev Group or SEAL Team 6 doing the recovery operation. I suspect they're going to have to address that since they purposely released those. Those are gun cams we're seeing there, and that is definitely their tier 1 unit. I can tell you that firsthand. So I would expect them to be boasting about that because they did not boasting, but you guys know what I mean. Like that unit. Watching that video footage was incredible. They. If the numbers are true, 250 people, I put down 68 guys in the process, rescued 250. I would expect them to highlight that now that it's out. And it could be just that, but that's still news that people need to hear. There's a lot of criticism really early on about, oh my God, Israel is completely unprepared. They weren't doing anything. When in reality, we know that's not true. They actually did a lot in the first, within 90 minutes, we know for sure, being in this space, right, from our Israeli friends on the ground, there's IDF jets in the air, and now we get to see the devastation that they were unleashing on these attackers in that in-between area outside of Gaza and on their way to, I would assume, Beersheba, but I don't know for sure. It looks like that based on where they found the bodies on the highway. So I hope the IDF does its guys justice by putting down this narrative that like they just didn't do anything for like 2 days. It was just total. No, they were fighting back pretty much instantaneously and sort of unprecedented. The American military couldn't mobilize as quickly as the IDF was returning fire. And I think we're going to find out over the long lens, the military response was incredible. with maybe some open critiques on intelligence. But I'm not trying to open that can of worms. I'm just saying that, like, I think we're going to see more of this information coming out.
Yes, they absolutely got caught with their pants down, but just as in 1973, they quickly mobilized and they fought back, and they fought back to take back those kibbutzes. They continue to do ground clearing operations in Israel right now, just to make sure there's none of these guys hanging around and attacking from their six. So, yeah, they got caught, but they snapped into gear quickly.
And they're going to have to go house to house because we still didn't know how many were left in houses and bodies and stuff, because not all the houses they burned down, right? Because that would be very telling.
Oh, they've gone house to house in every single of those communities now, but it's just a matter of making sure nobody went deeper,
outside of the communities. Yeah.
Yeah, outside of the communities, hiding in an industrial zone. They've gone to every single house in those kibbutzim and moshavim and small towns around there at this point.
I got to test the audio here to make sure the speech comes through clearly. So, real quick, I'm gonna put that through the IDF a video on the.
Let me just say, I know that I don't know how late it is for Adrian. So does Ash or Nate or Ron have any questions for Adrian? Just because I don't know how much time we have with him.
I actually don't. I came up here to post on the board. But anyway, love you guys to death. I'm going to bed.
Me too.
I am zonked, so good night.
Yes. Good night. I'm on an hour and 15 minutes. Good night, Ash.
Can you hear this audio real quick?
That was the best.
Yeah.
Like your voice, or are you playing?
We actually spoke with one man, originally from Ireland.
You heard that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Great.
You spoke with one man originally from Ireland. We also speak to one man originally from Ireland.
No, this is from the.
And
I was just playing.
And our man can kick your man's butt.
Yes. We're talking about GP.
I will terminate with extreme prejudice any Irish apologists for Hamas. Sorry, who was that sound clip about?
No, that's right on the IDF's page. They were playing.
It was just a sample piece. He was trying to see what the
If you want to hear
the
latest tweet from 5 minutes ago, if you want to hear what they're playing,
I'd love to hear that particular one if that was
okay. Yeah, sure,
okay.
No problem. I'll start from the beginning.
They just said, "We found Emily. She's dead." And I went, "Yes!" "Yes," and smiled. Because that is the best news of the possibilities that I knew. That was the best possibility that I was hoping for.
And we actually spoke with one man, originally.
Oh my God.
Who was separated from his 8-year-old daughter. She had gone to a sleepover at a friend's house who also lived in the kibbutz. And he described to us the agonizing moment after 2 days of waiting for answers. He was rescued. He finally found out that his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, had been killed.
She was either dead or in Gaza. And if you know anything about what they do to people in Gaza, that is worse than death. That is worse than death. The way they treat you. They'd have no food. They'd have no water. She'd be in a dark room filled with Christ knows how many people and terrified every minute, hour, day, and possible years to come. So death was a blessing, an absolute blessing.
That's it.
That is Thomas Hand, and I spoke. That's Thomas Hand. His wife died of cancer 2 years ago, and he went to Israel 30 years ago for some work and stayed. And not one single Irish media outlet has covered that. And I read it and then spoke to somebody indirectly through to him after posting the picture of Kim, who was also a 24-year-old, who was also killed. And you can hear in his voice, I mean, that he wished death on his own daughter rather than her sit in a basement with a bunch of terrorist animals for years. My heart bleeds for that man. His face, the expression on his face when he heard, was a mixture of relief and absolute grief. It's horrific.
Can I just say that, I run a campaign called Dads with Daughters, and when I woke up in the morning and I saw that, I was in a very bad state. I was like, I can totally relate to what you're saying, because I don't know if you guys know, when the Islamic invasion happened in Hindus, there's a system called Johar. So Johar was a system where thousands and thousands of women, they would jump into fire. Now, many people criticize why they were jumping into fire, but the reason they used to jump into fire was exactly. So I saw this video, I said, "Oh, now exactly know what this means." And I was shaking, and I tweeted that out from my other handle, which is a campaign for dads with daughters. I don't know. It's exactly what you said. It's with that point of pain, but also relief, and it was beyond any. I just can't
In
explain.
Judaism,
For the people,
in Judaism, there's a term. It's called sar ba'alei. It means pain to something that's alive, right? And when something that's alive is in a lot of pain, we're supposed to put it out of its misery, in a kind way. But there's a lot of, that's for creatures and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure that's what her father thought of it. And it's really sad. It's agonizing.
yeah. The thing that he doesn't mention is that on the night before, the Friday night, she normally would spend the evening with him, but she wanted to have a girly sleepover with her best friend, so he dropped her over. And when he heard the first alarms, being so used as they are because they're so close to the border, he was unconcerned. But then when he heard the escalation, he attempted to travel the short distance, but was pinned down by gunfire from terrorists for 12 hours. And then when he did make it to her best friend's house, they were all gone. And so he waited the 47 hours until it was confirmed that her body had been found. But, the sequence of events that led to that beautiful 8-year-old, begging her dad to have a big girly sleepover. And, and then, he also said, that reflecting on it, he would normally have not. But these things are not his fault. Obviously, are things people make decisions, and he can't blame himself. But the unimaginable grief of that man is, tomorrow in Dublin city centre, as all these hell-ridden demons of Irish descent who'll stand with Palestinian and Hamas flags, along with people from the region who entered this country unvetted, should be made sit in a room and listen to this as they chant and most of these people are comfortable, well-off, leafy suburb dwelling students going to Ivy League type colleges shouting death to Israel, gas Jews, while their own people are being destroyed emotionally, and children and women and innocent men are being massacred. And now they're on just trying to divert the narrative into whataboutery and all sorts of diversionary tactics. This is why we have to stay on top of the narrative and keep reminding people the genesis of this event, rather than the other rooms which are trying to extract themselves from the genesis and focus on like some outrageism regarding a reaction of a nation state defending itself against the equivalent of 29/11s. This is such an important task, and that's why that forum with radical extremists should be the focus of our attention. These people need to be held accountable post fact, and with the same type of mass reporting that the progressive left and apologists for terrorists do to people who are spreading truth. For a change, the people who spread truth should be creating the lists of radical people who are terrorists, rather than being the ones who are reported by radical terrorists as hate-filled liars, when all we're doing is stating fact and being level-headed and asking people to be also level-headed and appeal to the facts. Thank you.
Also, I just want to add, I attended a couple of those schools, and everything he's said is spot on. The students who came from that part of the world, you have to understand, it's much more expensive to attend a private university in the United States when you're an international student, okay? And these people never paid, in installments or anything like that. Everything was paid up front. And, on things like Thanksgiving, when we flew home for the weekend, you know, they went to St. Bart's. Who does that in college? You know what I mean? Like in college. We're talking about in college here. So these are not like, but God forbid there's some issue in the news about, the plight of Palestinians. They'll be there screaming and shouting, but they'll also be pledging at the sorority, chugging beer, bent down halfway, like ways I haven't even like. Let me tell you, these girls got some skills. Okay, I could have learned a thing or two about drinking beer upside down from them, but it's incredible. It's a double life. It's almost like it's a split personality, because the way they can show their outrage at the abuse of the Palestinian people, blah blah blah, while they're planning their trip to St. Bart's, is crazy. While they're like dancing on tables at a fraternity party, is crazy. It's just insane. While they're dating Jewish men, it's crazy. So this is all of this to me is I have dealt with the hypocrisy of very 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 wealthy uh, um, people from this part of the world who really don't care at all.
That's a fact. HSBC checks cleared them for $300,000 and $400,000 for the attendance, as it is in our top universities here, especially the Royal College of Surgeons and medical universities, paid up front, living in the most expensive penthouses in the city, in a city that is the third most expensive city in the world for property. And then they're out on the streets screaming death to Israel in a country that is giving them an education. But not only that, then they head back to the local gourmet restaurant.
Sorry, real quick, there's breaking from the IDF. Sorry, GP. The IDF calls on all residents of Gaza City to evacuate their homes and move south for their protection and settle in the area south of the Gaza River, as described on the map. The terrorist organization Hamas started a war against the state of Israel. Gaza City is an area where military activity takes place. Furthermore, the evacuation is for your personal safety. It will be possible to return to Gaza City only after a notification confirming this. Do not approach the fence area with the state of Israel. Hamas terrorists are hiding in the Gaza City in tunnels, under houses in Gaza City, and inside many buildings are innocent civilians. Furthermore, residents of Gaza move south for your personal safety and the safety of your families. Distance yourself from the Hamas terrorists who use you as human shield. The IDF will continue to operate significantly in Gaza City in the coming days and wishes to avoid harming civilians. Go ahead.
Hey, I need to jump in for a second. For my back channel team, our Spaces team, can you go look at the post that I just posted over there, especially GP and Sin City, if you wouldn't mind? I'll just take a second.
Also breaking,
sure.
Iran has threatened war may open on, and this is in quotes, other fronts. That just came out. Iran threatens war may open on other fronts.
Where's that from, Sphinx?
I have Fox News on, and I'm getting the headlines. It's just broke.
And that's what they plan. They plan, I fully suspect, Lebanon to jump in from the north, and then they're going to try and hit from the other side with Iraq. Proxies coming in through Syria. They've been trying to militarize the Golan all through the fog of the Syrian civil war. So, yeah, I mean, that's the plan, is to open up multiple fronts on Israel and try and overwhelm them. As I said, this is about, they're trying to extinguish a race of people. This is genocide.
No, it's attempted genocide, because not only are they're gonna fail miserably, they're going to
Agreed.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they want to threaten a war. They better be ready, because they're the ones going to be on their knees begging and praying for, like, saying, we are sorry, we regret. This is not something you do. Also, you read The Art of War. This is not what you do. They're idiots doing this. So this tells me either they're idiots or they don't want a war, and this is bullshit.
So I'm just from Tom Nash, who was on our space a few times, a really great guy, and he sent out a post that I'm in the mood for a little bit of bravado. So he wrote, Hamas did, quote unquote, really well against women and children Saturday morning. Now when they are getting punched back and Israel cut off their power, they scream about a, quote, humanitarian crisis. Maybe next time, don't go murdering 1,300 civilians of the country. That number is sadly going to go up. That has a massive air force and is giving you free electricity. Hamas have destroyed any shred of real global support except Arabs from around the world and anti-Semites, which means nobody's stopping Israel at this time until they demolish and dismantle Hamas. The, quote, genocide festival is not going to work for you after you go full Holocaust on women and children. Fuck off.
Who said that? Sorry, I missed it. Who said it?
Yeah, who said that?
Tom Nash. Tom Nash. He's been on our space a few times. Tom is Deloitte senior manager, a Jew of Russian descent. He's been on our space over the last few days. I am Tom Nash. I am Tom Nash.
We have a couple people that we brought up here. One second. Ash, I don't know if Ash, you have anything to say. Mr. Pickle and Ron, if you have anything to say, and then we lose Delta.
I thought Ash went to sleep. Did you go to sleep?
Okay. Maybe, I don't know. Mr.
Oh, you're
Pickle.
there, Ash. You didn't go to sleep.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard, I hadn't been listening to Adrian, so I didn't want to comment because I hadn't heard his whole.
I don't know why. Or this.
Sorry, breaking. U.S. and Qatar agree to keep $6 billion from Iran.
That was stated in a live stream earlier, though.
Ash, I'm going to take you down and bring you back up because Stealth can't hear you. I'm going to bring you right back.
No problem.
Sphinx.
Just request again.
This has broken already?
Broken stated it live in during his interview. He mentioned that they said that they were freezing the funds from the $6 billion. They said they were controlling it.
And the joint agreement with Qatar was also announced.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Sphinx, I'm going to send something.
Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry, Stealth, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I just want to know, is this any, in the back channels, is this anybody's intellectual property? Just look at that link I just sent from the group. That's all I need to know. Thanks. I know I'm speaking in code, but
I'm going through right now.
We're dropping and rising. I think you noticed GP by about 500 people, kind of very quickly. It's a little strange.
Yeah. So what's happened over the last 30 minutes is 500 plus to 1,000, back to 500, up to 1,500 2 minutes ago.
Wow.
Down to 1,100, back to 1,300, and right now it's at 1,145. So
an external entity is botting us? Is that what it's called? Is that what it means?
Well, yeah, and also I think with respect to what you posted in the back channel, there's a lot of scraping going on. I think it's being live streamed elsewhere, not in a good way.
I agree. Not in a good way.
No, not in a good way. Yeah. So the other
Is that
channels that
illegal? Is that illegal to do on
yeah,
Twitter?
well, is there? I'll speak about that in the back channel. But there's a phenomenon going on here. I'm just trying to get through the info you've posted. But
Sure.
this has been happening since I joined 90 minutes ago. I noticed it yesterday, starting sort of early morning my time, which is approximately 19 hours ago. It's reminiscent of another group, but there's definitely not a good actor scraping the room in its audio and playing it out on multiple other channels, and that's why we're seeing such rapid swings in the listenership. Like we're back to 500.
Now we're back to
500.
500. Yeah.
Yeah. So I pointed this out maybe 24 hours ago. So I can get somebody to take a look at that in about 3 hours when they're awake and see where the connections are coming through from.
Does the space have to stay running for that to happen?
Oh, well, yeah, but then it doesn't matter then if they're doing it now, they'll be doing it later, because it seems to me what they're doing is streaming this as not good reasons, and therefore they'll continue to do it.
And this is another reason we absolutely don't want any information that says anything about locations, strategy, nothing. Just
names,
north, east, west. Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's public record. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that
point out what the
OSINT
bad guys are planning. Point out what the bad guys are planning, but don't give up anything. And if you need me to keep the space open, I'll stay on here and just read my grandmother's recipes, like Strom Thurmond, for like 2 hours, just 10 hours.
I can send you the best recipes for croquet potatoes. I mean, literally the best recipes.
Start sending them to me.
IDF is live. IDF is live.
All right, let's go to the IDF. Let's go to the IDF. They've had great briefings last couple of days.
I was thinking of the recipes. Oh, GP, you make me laugh.
Back up to 1,060. It's happening in 500 chunks. By the way, yeah, recipes before we go to the IDF: croquet potatoes, 9 generations in our family, lemon curd pies, and sherry trifle, which can also be done with that alcoholic sherry trifle. Those 3 things.
I make the best trifle.
Terrorists that are attacking Israeli communities, or at least trying. Most of them have been repelled, killed, or taken into custody. But what I want to share with you first is a humanitarian step that the IDF is taking in order to minimize civilian casualties as this war unfolds. And I would like to read verbatim, word for word, the message that we sent, obviously in Arabic, to the local population in Gaza City, informing them of the need to evacuate from where they are for their own safety. This is the message. The IDF calls for the evacuation of all civilians from Gaza City. I'll zoom in a second. From Gaza City, from their homes, southwards for their own safety and protection, and to move to the area south of Wadi Gaza, the river Gaza, as shown on the map. We distributed this with a map as well. And in order to understand what we're talking about, Gaza City, a major center, the biggest center of population in the Gaza Strip. If we zoom in a bit, here we have Gaza City, and more to the south, Gaza River. You can see it here, this path. That is the Gaza River, and what the statement is saying, that people living in Gaza for their own safety should move south of this river. A river being something clear and understandable for everybody, whether or not they have a map or no. I'll continue to read. The Hamas terrorist organization waged a war against the state of Israel, and Gaza City is an area where military operations are taking place. This evacuation is for your own safety. You will be able to return to Gaza City only when another announcement permitting it is made. Do not approach the area of the security fence with the state of Israel, which means telling the Gazans, do not go this way towards the security fence, do not approach the border, only go south. Again, out of a concern for safety of non-combatants. I'll continue to read. Hamas terrorists are hiding in Gaza City, inside tunnels, underneath houses, and inside buildings populated with innocent Gazan civilians. Civilians of Gaza City, evacuate south for your own safety and the safety of your families, and distance yourself from Hamas terrorists who are using you as human shields. And the last paragraph, in the following days, the IDF will continue to operate with significant force in Gaza City and will make extensive efforts to to avoid harming civilians. That's the message that we issued a few hours ago to Gazan civilians, and the aim here is to minimize the damage to civilians. There are significant combat operations ongoing, and we are preparing for future and the continuance of our combat operations, and out of an understanding that there are civilians here whom are not our enemy, and we do not want to target them. We are asking them to evacuate so that we will be able to continue to strike military targets belonging to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. That is the purpose, and I think that's an important update, relevant for you to be aware of. This is a first notice that we gave. We understand that this will take time. It's not an easy process, but we have issued this guidance, and the aim of the evacuation is simply to save lives. As you may have read in the media, this was communicated to UN authorities, first and foremost to UN authorities, and the IDF is in communications and liaison with UN authorities, transferring information to them and also listening to what the UN informs Israel about the humanitarian situation in Gaza. And as I've said many times during the last 7 days, the IDF remains fully committed to the law of international conflict. We will carry ourselves accordingly, in sharp contrast to the enemies around us and to Hamas, which is in total disregard of anything related to values, norms, and definitely not the laws of armed conflict. The other things that are important for everyone to know, I think, are related to casualties. Unfortunately, the number of Israeli casualties has risen again to 1,300 Israeli civilians and soldiers, and more than 3,000 wounded. There is a massive national effort involving almost all of the security organizations and many of the ministries of the Israeli state, which is focused on taking the bodies from the same communities that we spoke about yesterday, like, for instance, Kfar Aza, Be'eri, and Nahal Oz, and many other communities in the entire southern area, collecting the bodies, bringing them to a center in Tel Aviv, identifying them, and then making sure that their next of kin, their loved ones, are able to take them and to provide them a final and respectable burial. That's ongoing. It is a tedious and long and very detailed process, taking lots of resources. We have never ever in our history been forced to deal with such a situation, and it is ongoing. It will take days, and as we match and identify more and more of the Israeli bodies that are uncovered in the communities, we will have more information about missing persons and perhaps the whereabouts of people that we are still at this stage not aware of where they are. And clearly, loved ones are looking for them, asking questions, and demanding those answers. And we are working hard at providing those answers. Other than that, the Northern Front, which we have spoken about a few times, has been relatively stable over the last hours. We are on high alert on the north, as we have been over the last few days, with enhanced troops, vigilant, watching the actions of Hezbollah. And same thing could be said about the Golan Heights. So we spoke about Lebanon and the Golan Heights. As we begin the 7th day of this war against Hamas, I wish to emphasize what our aim is. Our aim is to take all of Hamas's military abilities and strip them away. At the end of this war, our intention is that Hamas will no longer have any ability to strike or harm or kill Israeli civilians. That is the purpose of what we're doing now inside the Gaza Strip. That is why the Israeli Air Force has been delivering significant amounts of ordnance, of bombs on the Gaza Strip, and that is what we will continue to do as this war unfolds and as we will deal a decisive blow to Hamas for the horrible, heinous acts that they have done. I hope you find this information useful. If you do, share it with others. And as always, follow our platforms for real-time updates from the IDF. Thank you for watching.
That's it.
Imagine working in that coroner's office right now with the amount of crap these organizations, like they're, as I think I mentioned earlier on the earlier space, Israeli hospitals are not overloaded at the moment. Although I'm sure they're busy, but they're not overloaded at the moment. They have not begged for volunteer doctors and paramedics. Israeli cemeteries and Israeli cemeteries and the coroner's office is overloaded. That tells you something about the nature of the attack.
Stealth, GP has answered your question in the DMs.
Okay, I'm looking at
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys went kindergarten cop there.
Oh my God, it's
amazing. Sorry, I unmuted by accident while I was enjoying a moment of temporary pleasure and had a little chuckle to myself. I didn't realize my audio was open.
No,
it's a rare moment.
Audio.
Yeah, we know.
There's nothing funnier than when a serious man chuckles.
Especially when.
Yeah, well, I've just pointed it. It's a very rare break in the hard shell. So both record the audio and screenshot what I just wrote in the back channel, because y'all probably won't see that for another decade if I live out that long.
Well, from an Irishman, I've never heard an Irishman laugh before.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, we're very frustrated most of the time because in order to speak to our equal, we are forced to speak to God.
Thank you, Yo Daddy.
Yo Daddy. Yeah, that's why I was chuckling. I was thinking about that, Sphinx. Sorry.
So, Adrian, I don't know how much longer you could stay with us, but I did have, I wanted to know if you wanted to spend at least a couple minutes revisiting the question I had way back, which was,
I thought you were going to ask him for dinner or a cup of coffee. I didn't know what you were about to say. It was very funny.
Why would I ask?
Go ahead. I don't know. I don't know. It was funny. Okay, go ahead.
You want to have some dinner and a cup of coffee? Okay,
Mr.
fine.
Pickles and Ash also have questions. FYI. I've got a full group of people here. We've got Ophir here. Let me just make some room here really quick.
Okay, super quick. Adrian, have you or anyone else at your think tank, or again colleagues of yours, given thought to what should happen after they completely obliterate, which is the word that the defense minister used, Hamas, over the next 5 years, 10 years, sort of medium or long term not operations, but sort of status of how things should go in Gaza?
Israel needs to take back control of that area. I think this has proven that you just can't leave that area open, especially if you have an Egypt with a Sisi government in there that's willing to cooperate with you on patrolling the Sinai Peninsula. It doesn't make sense to just let terrorists flood back in there, because that's what will happen. They need to blow up all those tunnels. They need to fill those tunnels with cement so they can never be filled back up. They need to do. And the other thing is, for all the Arab nations that are crying about this, none of them have offered to take in any of the Palestinians in Gaza. And there's a reason why for that is because they're Hamas, they're Muslim Brotherhood. They pose a danger to their own nations. If you look at, most people don't, I'm sure most people in this room realize that, Palestine or Israel is just a tiny little sliver that was part of Jordan. Jordan was Palestine, and that's like enormous space. So there's a whole state right there with half the population. And then back to the classification of Palestinian refugees. Someone had asked that question later.
Yeah, that was me as well. That was me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have an ounce of Palestinian blood in you, you're considered a refugee. Okay, that it does not apply to the Kurds. That does not apply to. So what you have is farther you move away from people that are displaced from their territory, refugees, that population dwindles. Where you have seen the absolute opposite go with the Palestinians. And it's been classified that way by the UN. And what happens is it opens them up to all sorts of funding that goes into Abu Mazen or Mahmoud Abbas, whatever you want to call his name, the elected president of the PA. It goes to Hamas, or it goes into Gaza. All that money, all that funding goes in there because they get a different classification of refugee status. So,
and to clarify, I know this, but just to clarify, the way the Palestinian refugee population is counted and handled is different than the way every other refugee population in the world, literally every other one, is handled. In other words, the UN High Commission for Refugees handles every other refugee claim, and their goal is to reduce the amount of refugees over time by settling them and getting them back on their feet. The UN UNRWA, which handles only the Palestinian refugees, used to handle Palestinian and Palestinian Arab and Palestinian Jewish refugees, but there's no Palestinian Jewish refugees anymore. Does not work to settle them. They keep them in permanent refugee camps, and therefore their refugee population, by the definition that they use, increases over time, which is unique anywhere in the world. It's a scam, basically.
Exactly. You're